$5,220 to build upon our ongoing circulating technology grant. Out of the full amount being presented tonight, $5,220 is thanks to a grant given to the DCPLA by the town of Colma for Chromebooks and Wi-Fi hotspots to be available for checkout by library patrons. An additional $5,000 comes from the donations of DCPLA members, donors, and sponsors, and will be used to purchase Playaway launchpads. Daly City Public Library requested adding Playaway launchpads to the circulating collection, focusing on the needs of young children and their families, specifically as it relates to early literacy and kindergarten readiness. Launchpads are user-friendly tablets that each come preloaded with between 10 and 20 subject or theme-based apps. Launchpads are both educational and fun to explore and do not require Wi-Fi. Families can access them anywhere just by turning on the device. These educational tablets will benefit the numerous families in Daly City who do not currently have access to mobile technology or Wi-Fi in their homes. This grant enables the library to purchase a total of 30 launchpads, excuse me, as well as 25 additional USB replacement cords. Each launchpad comes with a circulation case, an AC adapter, a USB cord, and a 1-year warranty. The addition of this last grant of 2020 to the City of Daly City brings the total given by the DCPLA this year to $43,470. Wow. We are proud to have found ways to continue our mission to support our Daly City public libraries, even while fundraising is greatly impacted by the current pandemic. The support we've received through the years from Daly City City Council and government employees has been key to our success, and we look forward to continuing our friendship in 2021. Please don't forget that Giving Tuesday falls on December 1st, and end of year giving is always greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Mabalang. Very well done. Before I make a comment, I'd like to open it up to my colleagues for any thoughts and comments.
Mr. Mayor.
Please, Councilmember DiGiovanni.
Thank you. First of all, Victoria and DCPLA, that's amazing to think that during the COVID that people realize the importance of what is really needed in our community. You guys have really focused on the great digital divide and the access for the families that are in need. And for me, that tells you that you're in touch with the community. And I know you're connected on the ground and constantly trying to figure out what is best, how can you help the families, and whatever you guys decide. And this is just one step towards being able to make sure that all the children and all the families are connected and can access. The earlier access means the better educational opportunities that they'll be giving once they hit our pre-K and our elementary schools and so forth. So thank you to Executive Director, President Rosie Tejada, which I hope she still is the president, and also to the board for all you do and continue to do, and for people not to forget about Giving Tuesday on December 1st, and remembering our community, because local giving really makes an impact, and people can know that the money goes directly where when you give that money to the DCPLA, they actually make it useful and integrated in our community. So thank you very much for your great presentation, and humbly thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council Member DiGiovanni. Are there any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to comment.
Please, Dr. Rod.
Thank you to DCPLA and Victoria. Just being an educator myself, and the importance of just providing that access is so crucial. So I just want to say thank you again, 100 times over the past many years. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rod. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Executive Director Victoria, and to all your colleagues once again for just being able to ensure that folks in our community have access to technology, and also just really keeping innovation going, even within, I know you do, try to put programming, but even around technology. So you are all continuously finding ways to support our young people, seniors, and our community. And so very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Okay, I'll go. First of all, Ms. Babalang, thank you so much for your constant work and efforts and your thinking of Daly City. And that also goes for the rest of the staff on the board of DCPLA. I'd like to give a hearty thanks to our neighboring city, the town of Colma, for their participation in supporting the DCPLA. I'm unsure, and I think the town of Colma does not have a library. And my question would be, would they be able to partake of the library services offered by Daly City as well?
Yes, absolutely. Many Colma residents use our library, which is a big part of the reason that they do donate towards us. Because you're right, they don't have their own library in Colma. So we serve Colma citizens as well as Daly City, Broadmoor, and anyone can really get a library card. You don't have to be a resident of Daly City to get a Daly City library card.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's what I was hoping to hear. And that with the efforts of our library commissioners and the DCPLA, and again, as Councilmember Di Giovanni had mentioned, given this year of what we've been through thus far, this is definitely a welcome addition. And again, thank you all so much for everything that you continue to do, not only for Daly City, but for all our neighboring cities as well. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, and are there any other comments at this time? All right, thank you again, Ms. Victoria Mabalang, DCPLA, and we are now going to move ahead on the agenda for the next presentation, and I'll turn it over to our assistant to the city manager, Leilani Ramos, on the Clean project. Leilani, you have the floor. Welcome. Good evening.
Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. In fall 2020, the city launched Clean Daily City, an initiative to address illegal dumping as a unified community and to build pride for the neighborhoods we live in. It is a citywide effort to call our community into action to work together to create a clean, livable environment and neighborhoods. Staff has prepared a brief video presentation to describe this effort. Clean Daily City is an initiative to address illegal dumping as a unified community and to build pride for the neighborhoods we live in. It is no secret that illegal dumping is plaguing our city, and the current global pandemic has only exacerbated this issue. Mattresses, sofas, furniture, appliances, and household waste matter are thrown about our streets in every neighborhood. It is unsightly, unhealthy, unwanted, and needs to be addressed collectively. Over the past few months, the City Manager's Office has been leading a collaborative effort that includes the City Attorney's Office, Police, Code Enforcement, Public Works, and Republic Services to develop a plan to successfully address illegal dumping in partnership with our community. Our task force has been working behind the scenes to prepare for an illegal dumping campaign launch in fall 2020, which includes the following phases: education, engagement, enforcement, and eradication. This collaborative is a citywide effort to call our community into action, to work together to create a clean, livable environment and neighborhoods. The first phase of Clean Daily City is to educate our community about illegal dumping, the impacts it has on our community, and how community members can help. In an effort to create awareness, the city is informing, educating, and encouraging community members through a variety of outlets, including publishing newsletters, posting public service announcements, launching a dedicated webpage, www.dalycity.org/Clean Daly City, and highlighting available resources such as the direct number to the police department to report dumping in progress, 650-992-1225. The iHelp app to report dumped objects around the city, which may be downloaded from your app store, and the Clean Hotline, 650-991-8224. The city has also partnered with our waste hauler, Republic Services, to issue quarterly newsletters with illegal dumping content, offer resources for proper disposal like the semi-annual e-waste collection event and document shredding services, advertise the free annual on-call bulky goods collection program, and provide additional garbage pickup options. The second phase of Clean Daly City is engagement with our community by empowering community members to take a stand against illegal dumping so our city can be debris-free. Our community plays an important role to address this citywide issue. Without their support, the city will continue to exhaust time and resources, which redirects staff from other important community projects. Taking individual responsibility for the waste we produce and scheduling neighborhood cleanups and volunteering in beautification projects in a post-pandemic world when it is safe to gather again will help to build pride in the neighborhoods we live in. Partnering with property owners and community-based organizations to form neighborhood champions will expand the city task force and create a stronger network. Empowering community members to follow the motto, see something, say something, will begin to send the message that the city has a zero tolerance for illegal dumping activities. The third phase of Clean Daly City is enforcement of existing and local laws against violators. Many cities combating illegal dumping have found that enforcement can speak volumes to violators. In addition to empowering our community partners to follow the see something, say something motto, the city will also be implementing camera-based enforcement strategies to identify violators. Enforcement officers will be trained to take the opportunity to educate and engage the violator when issuing the administrative citation. The purpose and intent of enforcing administrative citations outlined in the Daly City Municipal Code is strictly to prevent illegal dumping activities from recurring. The fourth and final phase of Clean Daly City is eradication of illegal dumping. Clean Daly City strives to put an end to illegal dumping activities and completely eradicate our city of the issue through successful implementation of the previous phases: education, engagement, and enforcement. Join us and take a stand against illegal dumping in our city, and let's work together to create a clean, livable environment and neighborhoods.
Okay. Leilani, any additional comments?
No additional comments, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll open it up to my colleagues for any comments.
Mayor, thank you so much. I just want to commend staff and everyone. This is amazing to see this initiative. We know that in many parts of Daly City that we've seen illegal dumping, not in just one neighborhood, but multiple neighborhoods across Daly City. I love the acronym and really around talking about the environment as well and seeing all aspects. It's well thought out. I the part around engagement and taking ownership with ensuring residents, when they take ownership of their neighborhoods, and we're in a pandemic, but that's also a part of it. I know that has um, happened in different neighborhoods around volunteerism, but finding all the different avenues even with the camera, bringing in enforcement. And I think it's just very comprehensive and a strategy that I hope our residents that are listening can see how much work has been put into this. And it really takes everyone together. And that now they have, a platform and of understanding, if there's something that is happening, say something about it as far as illegal dumping, and also taking ownership in our neighborhoods, taking pride in our neighborhoods. But I love the really smart acronym clean Daly City. I thought that was very innovative, and this is great to see this transpire. Wonderful job, Leilani, and the whole team. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, Councilmember DJ Votto.
Thank you. Well, there's not enough to say that innovative, creative. I like that it's the implementation part, of which doesn't surprise me about Leilani and your team, Stephen, and our city manager, Public Works, and everyone that worked together, because you guys work together as a team. And for every picture that I forward to either our city manager or it gets to Leilani or it gets to Stephen about people, you really listen to the people and to care about our residents, and you listen to them. This tells them that you listen and you're going to take action, not just listening and solving one problem at a time, which you guys were always working on, because Leilani did such a great job of that last e-waste. And it took tons of stuff that would have been normally probably dumped, not all of it, but some of it on our streets. And because people didn't have access to where to do with it during the pandemic as well. So I commend you guys on that. And just like the Vice Mayor, the acronym is fantastic. And the fact that everybody's going to partner together to take pride in the neighborhoods and the little ones up to, of course, once the pandemic is over, and the little ones up to adults. And I know that Tathia and all those people that have been proactive, this is just a step towards that. I know that they did, like, I think, adopt a block and that team. So bringing everybody together so we can work as one, as a community, because we have such a great community anyway. And you could tell that people really care about it, and city manager and everyone. Thank you so much, and looking forward to the implementation and looking to volunteer, because I miss that top of the hill and other areas in our city. So gonna wait to see what's on the corner of educating and the next steps that you do. Great job, Leilani, HeadNet, Stephen, City Manager, Public Works, Law Enforcement, everyone. Bravo. Thank you. Because we are one big community together. Thank you. Looking forward to it. Taking pride.
Thank you, Councilmember DJ Vani. Is there any other comments? Dr.
I'd like to
Rod.
comment, Mr. Mayor. Yes,
Sure.
thank you, Leilani, and the staff. Well done with the production. It almost kind of remind me of, like, if Daly City had to do a Marie Kondo cleanse. What gives you joy and what can we throw away? But I think it gives this whole notion of taking, like, pride in pride in our city in terms of how it looks like, and then finding a method and approach to actually deal with this. Myself living in Southern Hills, you see dumping happening very on a regular basis, and I'm always thinking in my head every time I see, like, dumping, it's like, what is one way to enforce this? What is one way to address this issue? And I think that looking through this presentation and with the acronym of CLEAN, I think it's straight to the point, and it has all the different elements and layers that discuss about community engagement, to partnership, to enforcement, to it has all the components and positions covered. So thank you to everyone that worked on this.
Thank you, Dr. Rod. All right, any other comments? Councilmember
Yeah.
Buenaventura.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I maybe I'll throw all of my comments all out there. So, because I have some questions, and maybe Leilani or someone can pick up on them. So first, yeah, that was a really good video, as always. Leilani, when you are involved in producing something, it always turns out well done. So kudos to you and your team for putting that together. I had a couple of questions though, and maybe just some comments. I guess what I was wondering, I was really curious about, is the actual dumping. If we are experiencing people who are dumping locally, or is it more of a transfer dumping from other cities like San Francisco or cities to the south of us. And I'm wondering if that's what's going on, and I sure would like to find out if that's what's really happening. And then secondly, the dumping itself, I mean, I was just trying to think of why people would do that. And, you know, it comes down to either, well, obviously some people just don't care, and that's really bad, or they don't have the ability, either financially or physically, to get rid of some of these major bulky items like sofas and beds and refrigerators or whatever. And I'm wondering if we can craft solutions when you are meeting with your team and you're collaborating to talk about things like, um, is there something that we can do perhaps to give them either like a pass to the dump station themselves so that they can take it over there, so that we're not so burdened with having to do that. But I think people in general are prideful of their living situation and their residence, and if you gave them maybe like a free pass or something to get rid of their stuff, maybe they would. um, and also I think the problem is the physical delivery of the items, and some don't have the capability. Either they don't have the trucks, they don't have a large vehicle, and so some kind of assistance to help them in getting rid of this stuff physically when they otherwise wouldn't be able to do that. Um, I do really like the idea of the cleanup neighborhood type community getting together and doing something about that. Um, I will say, however, that you know the Daly Cities tried this several years ago when they had the clean community programs going on. And from my understanding, the reason it didn't work is because it really turned neighbors against neighbors. And I'm hoping that we can find a way where the reporting, even reporting has to be done, but it shouldn't be, I'd like to find a way to do it anonymously so that we don't put neighbors against neighbors and turn it into more of a um, antagonistic kind of situation that goes on in the neighborhood. But I do think you're on the right track when trying to put something together and getting the neighborhood community members to collaborate together. And the other thought I had is, you know, we used to have, when I grew up, we used to have block parties where people would really celebrate within their neighborhood and try to get to know each other. And maybe that will spread the goodwill and the intensity of trying to beautify the city. But I think, yeah, so those are my comments. I think it's a really good program. It's time that we had something now, but I sure would like to find a way to try to help people and identify what the real problem is, why they're doing this, and make it easier for them to comply and not violate the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Buenaventura. Okay, I'll make a comment. Again, I echo the sentiments of the rest of my colleagues in congratulating staff and putting together this program. We knew it was inevitable, but having the various departments and folks come together to validate the 4 E's. It's definitely innovative and an excellent job. I'll concur with the vice mayor because I saw one part on the video and I really like that, and that's camera-based enforcement. That's a term that I really hadn't heard before, but I think it will go a long way in helping to identify where these folks are coming from who are dumping into our city. Uh, I think that would help very much. And part of your education to the community, I believe that the yearly annual cleanup I found to be very, very important Being a resident here in Daly City for over 33 years, I did not know about the annual cleanup once a year to about 5 years ago. And that's where once a year you can just put everything out, they'll just come pick it up. So we need to get that out to the public. That's very, very important. And I want to say that beginning the presentation and listening to it, I have to commend whoever came up with the music because it was so not uplifting, but smooth, easy listening, and it puts you in the right mood for something that is very, very important. But at the same time, it really relaxed me. And whoever came up with that, excellent job. And I do recall the voice, the narrator on that one, and outstanding, outstanding. So it was a great calling. I'm looking forward to any sort of support that we can do as a council and as a city. But again, kudos for the job. Well done. Thank you so much, Leilani.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments before we move on?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I do have a comment. I actually was reached out by a community member today that wants to work with the city. Their organization wants to donate dumpsters and see how that can be done in areas in which there are high dumping. And so I think this is maybe a possibility to work with the committee. They want to just contribute and give back to the communities that they reside in. And so I think I told them that it's important to speak with the Republic and the now this initiative around ways appropriate, right? Where are the areas that are highly there's high dumping and they're willing to pay the cost of it, and so it would be a community kind of effort in collaboration with the city and Republic, and they are willing to fund the cost. So I thought it was appropriate to share that with all of you, that there's folks willing to give back in that way. So um, thank you, Mayor.
That's great, Vice Mayor. We've had some issues before in the past couple of months, and that idea came up, where folks are willing to put out the funds. Let's just get a dumpster and let's just get this thing done. That is excellent. That's good to know, and I'm sure Leilani will and staff will take all this information and know that we have an additional resource. That is outstanding. I also want to make mention that this comes in time because if I'm not mistaken, our new Daly City website will be launched pretty soon. And it's going to offer our citizens the capability to see all the resources on our website. And as we gain additional content, it's great. So again, a long time coming, but thank you for that, Vice Mayor. That's good to know. Maybe I can talk to a few folks and say, hey, would you be willing to pay for a dumpster to help us out? Outstanding idea, Vice Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Leilani. All right. Leilani, and I'll make one more suggestion. Mr. Chu of Public Works had made mention in one of his PSAs about the cost to the city of over $300,000 a year in illegal dumping. So let's get that out to the community as a reminder as well. Okay, I think that would be a good idea so that they know. Thank you. All right. The next item is the approval of the minutes of November 9th. May I have a motion from anyone, please?
Motion to approve the minutes.
First, there's second.
Second.
Okay, second by Dr. Rod. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes have been passed. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the agenda.
We have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Rod. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the agenda has been approved. The next item is the consent agenda. And I'll entertain a motion from any of my colleagues.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember DiGiovanni.
Yeah, I was wondering if we could just like to pull 3, 5, and only one part of 6.
Well, okay, I don't think we can bifurcate.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's
just say
true.
Part of 6, so
Yeah,
you want to
6 and
pull
then just
3,
address one
5,
issue.
and 6. Okay, great. This is a question I'd like to put out. Stephen, do we entertain, Madam City Attorney, do we entertain public comments on items under the consent agenda?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. So to the extent there are public comments for specific items, we do
Yes.
hear those before they're voted on.
Okay, good. All right, good to know. So I know I've received some public comments on item number 6, and Stephen, I'll defer to you. Have you received any public comments on any item of the consent agenda besides item number 6?
No, it's only related to item number 6, but
Thank you.
there's about 15 comments overall that I think one in particular called out item 6.
Okay, thank you so much. So right now at this time, as per Councilmember DiGiovanni, we have the following 3 items to pull: item number 3, 5, and 6. Are there any other items? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items 3, 5, and 6. Does anyone want to make that motion?
Motion to approve the agenda except for the items 3, 5, and 6 on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni. Is there a second? I will second. I'll second that motion. Okay, is there any further discussion? All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda with the exception of items 3, 5, and 6, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the consent agenda has been approved. So we'll start off with item number 3, accepting and appropriating Measure A local shuttle program funds for the Daly City Bayshore shuttle. And I'll turn it over to, I believe that's our city attorney for an update, or your staff.
I believe it's Richard, Mr. Chu.
Okay, okay, Mr. Chu, you have the floor.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. This item is to accept and appropriate $341,000 in Measure A grant money for the Daly City Bayshore Shuttle, and to authorize the city manager to execute the funding agreement with San Mateo County Transportation Authority. The Bayshore Shuttle started in 2014. And since that time, the shuttle was funded completely with grant funds. Most recently, the Bayshore Shuttle is being funded by San Mateo County Shuttle Program, Measure A, and also the San Mateo County Transit Authority program, Lifeline Transportation Program. The annual cost to operate the shuttle is estimated to be $300,000 for fiscal year 2021, and also for fiscal year 21-22 for in the amount of $320,000. So over 2 years, the total cost is $620,000. That includes the operating costs for the shuttle itself, a little bit of marketing, and some administrative overhead. In July of 2018, Daly City received $300,000 in Lifeline Transportation Program grant money. And then in February of 2020, the City Council authorized staff to submit an application for the Measure A grant funds. In May of this year, Daly City was selected to receive $341,000 in Measure A grant funds. There's no fiscal impact to operating the shuttle. It's completely funded with both of these grant programs. The matching fund for the Measure A is met by using the LTP grant money, and also the LTP matching fund is met by using the Measure A funds. So as a result, no city funds is needed to operate the Bayshore Shuttle for the next 2 fiscal years. This action will appropriate $341,000 of Measure A grant funds to the CIP account for Bayshore Shuttle to fund the Bayshore Shuttle operations program. And in summary, staff is recommending that council accept and appropriate $341,000 of Measure A local shuttle program funds for the Daly City Bayshore Shuttle, and then also authorize the city manager or her designee to execute the funding agreement with the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. Okay, do we have any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, please.
First of all, Mr. Chu, well, actually, this is a lot of questions people wanted to know that even lived in the Bayshore, how this is funded, so that people realize that these regional boards that some of us sit on, and I'm on the CCAG as well, that they actually look, and then our city has been getting a lot of grants, and they're proactive in the grants, and that to think that we have transportation in an area that didn't have access, and that it doesn't have any fiscal impact. So no funds are taken out of our city. So I think that that's important for people to highlight, and that the routes are usually reviewed every so often to see what the need is, so that our city keeps up on all that and what the needs are. And I'm very proud that CCAG and our Transportation Authority and these regional boards that some of us sit on, that there is a lot of collaboration going on, and that it does work, and the funds, the grants, everything, it works together, and we benefit from Daly City. I'm very proud, and thank you, Mr. Chu, and your staff for being so proactive, because when I'm on the CCAG and hear that we got another grant, I try not to, but be elated. But they're very supportive of our Daly City, and I appreciate all the regional boards and everyone that sits on it, and all the hard work it does in getting a grant. And granted, so thank you to all your staff, and appreciate it. Thank you for the Bayshore Shuttle as it keeps continuing on, and there's a need moving forward. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni. Are there any other comments? All right, Councilmember DiGiovanni, thank you for your work on this as well, and for representing. I believe you're also, again, on commute.org, and they look at these shuttles. They look at the verification if folks are using these shuttles, and that is how we're able to maintain them. I know we have a problem with east-west access in our city. And I believe Mr. Salty put something up today regarding a new studies that's going to be conducted when we need folks to get involved and fill out the survey, because the potential transit route will be from the Bayshore going westerly to as far as Westlake. So I encourage everyone to get involved and fill out that survey. And thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni, for remaining as an advocate, especially in the area of transportation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your prior work on commute.org as well. Appreciate it.
Okay, so Are there any other comments on item number 3 at this time? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept item number 3.
Motion to accept item number 3.
And I'll second. Any further discussion? Dr. Rod?
No, I don't have. I was
Okay.
waiting to vote.
All right, great. Okay, not hearing any further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, item number 3 is passed. Moving on to item number 5, which is accepting and appropriating a $5,000 crisis collections grant from the California State Library. So I'll ask the question. I see Pam, you're smiling there. I guess this is different than DCPLA. Okay, this is more money. All right, who's going to provide us a report on that?
Sheila.
Oh, Chella. Okay, hi, Chella.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. The library is very pleased to report that we have received a grant from the California State Library to help us continue to build our collection of ebooks, which are especially important while we have limited access to our physical collections during the pandemic. If this is a little bit familiar, it's because this is the second round of funding, and we received funding the first time around way back at the beginning of all this, and we're receiving funds a second time. We will be using the funds to purchase both materials for adults and for youth, and we're very grateful to the State Library for making these funds available so that we can make things absolutely touch-free for people to access books, audiobooks, and things like that through our online resources.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any questions for Ms. Anderson? Comment? Go ahead, Pam.
Mr. Mayor, no, I just wanted to highlight this item because Ms. Anderson really was proactive before, and she's proactive again. And the library is something that everybody is so focused on, especially during the pandemic. They've done such a great job. And ebooks really is a big help for many people. And those that have challenges, even in disabilities or challenges. And now it's become a real resource because of the COVID for the touchless, for the drop-off books, but yet they have another venue. So people are concerned during COVID. They have another way to access, and I don't know if people realize that ebooks has been a very hot item for us. And Ms. Anderson, really appreciate the proactiveness of all of you at our library. It's been a great transition, and to go after money, so that we really haven't had, but you always highlight our libraries tonight. Really appreciate it. And the big need and how much the community appreciates it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni. Are there any other comments or questions for Ms. Anderson? Okay, great job. I'll entertain the motion to accept item number 5 on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Rod. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of item number 5 on the agenda, on the consent calendar for approval, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, that matter has passed. Okay, moving to item number 6, adoption resolution for salary and benefits for specific executive management classifications. And I'll turn that over to Natalie here. Let me see, Natalie. I don't see her on the list.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
Our labor
Please.
negotiator, Donna Williamson, I believe, is on this call.
Oh,
Mr. Cal is out of town right now. So Donna, are you there?
Don't know if she's called in
Yes,
yet.
no, I
Oh,
am
there she
here.
is. Okay.
Oh, okay, you're the guest. Okay, welcome, Donna. Good to hear your voice. You have the
Thank you.
floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. We presented this report this evening to make recommendations at the end of the process of recommending salary increases and benefits packages for all of the city employees. As you know, we completed the negotiations with all of the represented bargaining units over the past year and a half. And the executive management team was to go following all of that work. And we now have before you the recommendation for increases consistent with the approach we took with the other units for the executive management team. I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you so much, Donna. And thank you for being here. So at this time, I'll open it up to council for any questions before we open up to public comments.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes,
just want to ask the Donna, wasn't this based on, and through the mayor, we based this on, there was an equity issue, I believe, on these particular items?
So there were
way behind. Would you mind explaining that, please?
Yes, so the approach that the council authorized and that we took with the various units and carried through to these classifications was for cost of living increases consistent with what the other units got, and also for equity adjustments for positions that were behind market. An additional part of equity increases was to deal with compaction. So for example, in addition to being behind market, we have some classifications that also where the percentage difference in salary between the classification and the folks who report to that classification was so small that it was creating disincentives to promote, and that term is called compaction. In some cases, we even have situations where people who report to department heads, for example, were making more money than the people that they reported to because this group has gone behind the other groups. And so the combination on salary increases are the cost of living increases, plus the equity increases, which also take into account compaction where that exists.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni, for that question to help bring about a greater understanding as to how the council went about these various positions. Okay, are there any other questions at this time? Okay, hearing none, what I like to do now is open it up to public comments, and I believe we have a few. Now we'll turn it over to Mr. Stolte, our Assistant City Manager. Stephen, you have the floor.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. So we have a lot of comments tonight, and many of them are focused on how Measure Q money will be spent in the future. But two comments, I've gone through them all just right now in the last few minutes. There are two that are, I think, more appropriate to read now for this agenda item. Otherwise, I could read them all right now. But I'll start with these two. How about that? That specifically kind of talk to this agenda item.
Stephen, yeah, thank you for that. Looks like Measure Q is not a part of number 6, so we can save that later for open public comments.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so the first comment that pertains to this agenda item is from Nick Ochipinti, and it says, as we continue to navigate the pandemic and see coronavirus cases surge nationally, statewide, and here in San Mateo County, particularly in the Daly City area, it is highly questionable to see the city asking to approve of raises of many of its highest paid administration. Our essential workers continue to work at the lowest levels of minimum wage rates here in Saramonte and throughout the area. The minimum wage is only increasing to $15 per hour this January, and many of these employees are not receiving hazard pay. Voters just approved Measure Q for emergency services for our city at a time when our fire department has been working nonstop to fight wildfires and address medical emergencies in the community this year. And it's a little bit about Measure Q too. Measure Q funding is projected to fill budget gaps that include expanding social services, library and recreation, and finally addressing homelessness. Before that funding has ever been allocated, the city is now getting ready to approve unnecessary and untimely raises for many of its top paid administrators. Not only is this not an act of good faith on fiscal responsibility, it is completely irresponsible when city resources should be expanded in support of our community and local businesses struggling to make ends meet and recover from this pandemic. I strongly encourage the City Council to rethink these exorbitant raises, freeze any current projections on salary raises for city administration, and prioritize the needs of our city first. Thank you. And the one other comment that touches on this agenda item is from Kaylee Kerr, and it says, we do not need to raise the salary of the police chief by using the general fund. Please put the money towards community support, especially during COVID, or on the library or leisure services instead. We want transparent budgeting and public oversight in regards to Measure Q funds because the goals of the measure are not clear. We would like to host a public stakeholders forum to discuss how the funds from the measure will actually be used. And that's all that kind of touch upon this agenda item.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
I will second. Thank you, Dr. Rod. So public hearing's now been closed. Okay, are there any other comments at this time for Ms. Donna before we move on for the vote?
Mr. Mayor, may I just wanted clarification for the public? And Ms. Donna, are you still there?
I am here.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for being on the meeting. Like, if an example, like you were saying that certain people were even had higher than the people that they work for and things of that nature, even in some instances, somebody hadn't had a raise in 2000, I guess not a raise, but since 2008. But in particular is, I think was the focus to be transparent with our public and our community as the disparity within we're not just going around and giving raises, that needs to be like clarified to our public, and that not all of the people were addressed as the executive or the heads of our department, that it wasn't a blanket on each person. Somehow to let people know that was the case. That was not because of that.
Yes, Councilman, I'm happy to respond to that. First of all, I think that it's important to note that there were changes made throughout this whole process to try to move towards actually being able to have cost containment around benefits across the city. And so, that included negotiating changes with all of the bargaining units that also were incorporated into this group. And because this group is not a bargaining unit, each classification has its own unique market and its own unique issues, and compaction and market being two separate issues. And they were looked at with the same approach as for all of the represented units, but as separate classifications, because that is how you need to look at those particular positions. So the same concessions that were made with the other groups were made with these positions, and the same approach with respect to looking at the market and compaction and cost of living was also taken with all of these groups, with all of these classifications, excuse me.
Thank you, Ms.
Okay, thank you, Donna. I have one more question, and I kind of alluded to it, but I think we need to clarify. The executive and the management group is the last group to come before the negotiations table, and everyone else in the city throughout all ranks had, we took the same approach with them as we did with the executive management group. It's just that the pay raises have already gone into effect for the entire rest of city staff. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. That's all I have. Okay, are there any other further comments?
Mr. Mayor, I do. I think
Please, go
also,
ahead.
yeah, I think also in regards to the decision making or direction, I think there was also a comparison around what other cities around us, the executives around us were making, and also just having parity, given that we are the largest city in San Mateo County. So there are, I think, charts that show where our employees or management employees lie, right? So I just wanted to also um, state that that was also one of the rationale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay, any other further comments? So on item number 6, adopting the resolution for salary and benefits for specific executive management classifications, I'll entertain a motion to accept item number 6. I'll make the motion to accept item number 6 on the consent agenda. Is there a second? Okay.
I'll second. I'll
No-
second.
Council Member Buenaventura, thank you so much. So there's been a first and a second on item number 6. Do we have any further comments or discussion on this item? Okay, all those in favor of approving item number 6 on the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, this item has been approved. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Williamson, for being on the call for us. And I'd
Thank
like to
you.
thank my colleague, and I'd like to thank my colleagues for all the very, what's the right word for it? Not legitimate, but very, you get what I mean. The questions that were asked, in other words, relevant questions. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is, that's the end of the consent agenda. Moving on to item number 10, introduce ordinance repealing and replacing chapter 8.32, illegal dumping and littering. And Leilani, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to pull up a presentation. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Given the tremendous uptick of illegal dumping in our city, staff is recommending the City Council repeal and replace Chapter 8.32 of the Daly City Municipal Code. When the chapter was enacted in 1978, illegal dumping was not an issue. The original intent of the chapter was to address litter. Currently, any person who violates any of the provisions of the chapter will be guilty of an infraction and/or misdemeanor. Violators are subject to the following fines and penalties. The penalty for infraction is $100 for the first violation, $250 for the second, and $500 for each additional violation after the second within a 12-month period. The penalty for misdemeanor is $1,000, 6 months in jail, or both. When surveying neighboring cities, most city ordinances mirror the exact penalties just described, with the exception of South San Francisco that charges $1,000 each day the violation continues, Pacifica that charges $500 each day the violation continues, and Burlingame that charges the actual cost of cleanup plus 7% interest. The purpose and intent by repealing and replacing this chapter is to protect public and private property from litter and illegal dumping by increasing remedies for victims and increasing penalties for violators in order to discourage such acts. The proposed revisions in Chapter 8.32 makes illegal dumping unlawful, allows the city manager to designate enforcement officers beyond the police department and code enforcement division to further educate, engage, and enforce the provisions of this chapter, charges violators more appropriately based on the frequency and severity of the offense, provides violators an appeal process, creates an opportunity to establish a community service in lieu program for violators, and gives the victims options to pursue civil actions against violators. Since the remedies and penalties to address these acts are currently inadequate to compensate the public and the victims and have not proven to discourage littering and illegal dumping activities in our city, staff recommends establishing the following administrative citation schedules. The first schedule addresses administrative citations for littering. Violators will be charged $250 for the first violation, $500 for the second, and $1,000 for the third within a 12-month period. The second schedule addresses administrative citations for illegal dumping. Violators will be charged $1,000 for the first violation, $2,500 for the second, and $5,000 for the third. Additionally, violators shall be provided a 24-hour notice of cleanup. The violator will have 24 hours from the issued notice to clean up the illegally dumped items or will be subject to the additional cost of cleanup and disposal arranged by the city. The third schedule addresses administrative citations for failure to abate by private property owners. Violators will be charged $500 for the first violation, $1,000 for the second, and $3,000 for the third. It is important to note that Chapter 8.32 currently holds all property owners responsible for maintaining the premises of their property, including the adjacent public right-of-way, free of garbage. Additionally, property owners shall be provided a 72-hour notice of cleanup. The property owner will have 72 hours from the issued notice to clean up the illegally dumped items or will be subject to the additional costs of cleanup and disposal arranged by the city. The revisions to this chapter will continue to hold property owners responsible in an effort to encourage partnership through prevention efforts, such as installing physical barriers and cameras, and utilizing available resources like the free annual bulky goods collection program with the city's waste hauler. The fourth schedule addresses administrative citations for major violations. Major violations are intended to capture gross violations of illegal dumping in terms of severity and frequency. A commercial quantity, which is estimated to be 1 truckload, and fourth violations for littering, illegal dumping, and failure to abate constitute major violations. For these gross violations, violators will be charged $5,000 for the first major violation, $7,500 for the second major violation, and $10,000 for the third major violation. Additionally, violators shall be provided a 24-hour notice of cleanup. The violator will have 24 hours from the issued notice to clean up the illegally dumped items or will be subject to the additional costs of cleanup and disposal arranged by the city. Any person receiving an administrative citation may request an appeal hearing with a hearing officer designated by the city manager. The hearing officer, after considering all of the testimony and evidence submitted at the hearing, shall either confirm the violation and uphold the administrative citation or find that no violation has occurred and refund any deposit paid to the city. The hearing officer has discretion to reduce the administrative fines amount and permit the violator to perform community service in lieu of monetary or criminal penalties when appropriate. The revisions to this chapter further provide remedies to victims of illegal dumping by allowing any person or entity, public or private, to bring civil action against the violator to recover costs of removal, damages, and fees. As shared earlier this evening, the city recently launched Clean Daly City in an effort to address this citywide issue. The goal of Clean Daly City is not to impose administrative citations, but rather to successfully educate and engage all members of our community to build pride within our neighborhoods and to prevent further littering and illegal dumping activities from occurring. Staff understands that community members may lack the appropriate resources to properly dispose of waste. As part of our education and engagement efforts, staff is working with Republic Services to develop programs that will help low-income households access these services. Enforcement, including camera-based enforcement strategies, is intended to be a tool when education and engagement prove unsuccessful with repeat violators. Camera-based enforcement options will also help the city to analyze who is dumping and where the dumping is originating. The city wants to work in partnership with our community to eradicate litter and illegal dumping and not have to penalize them. The city also wants to hold non-community members accountable if and when they illegally dump in our city. While fines are steep as the frequency and severity increases based on the number of offenses, staff intends to never have to issue these administrative citations as a result of successful education and engagement. Staff recommends that the City Council repeal and replace Chapter 8.32 of the Daly City Municipal Code regarding illegal dumping and littering, and we are available to provide any additional information desired by the City Council.
Thank you, Leilani, and we'll open it up now for any questions and comments.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple.
Please, please.
First of all, thank you, Leilani. Great. And thank you, City Attorney, and whomever worked on this. My question is, you said that we're going to educate and we're going to provide for the low income, which is great. Like we're going to give them a way to contact or who to contact in case they want to eradicate, Ms. Ramos? Is that, so they'll have a way to, like you said, you're not out like just penalizing people, but you want to give them a place that they can call, who they can call in case they want to prevent them from dumping?
Yes, the purpose of education is really to provide all the resources available to the community. So for instance, Republic Services offers an annual free bulky item collection. A lot of residents don't realize that this is a resource available to them. So through extensive education efforts, we want to continue to let the public know that you have these options. And if you've, let's say, exhausted your annual pickup, having a resource list for them, Republic Services will do additional garbage pickups, and there's different costs associated with that. So really working with the community for them to have that information so that they can utilize it.
Excellent. And then you said there's going to be a hearing officer. Who may that be? And I guess it would be designated by our city manager. Who would that be? Would that be our code enforcement or someone sworn in? Because they'll be able to make those decisions, correct?
So that could be any member, any employee in any department, and it can be designated by the city manager. So it doesn't even just need to be one, it can be multiple. It can include our enforcement officer, our code enforcement officer. It could also include members of our public works department as well. We have a lot of our streets employees that are out there that actually witness illegal dumping happening in progress. And so giving them that authority to cite those individuals, to engage with them and educate them on the resources that they have to properly dispose of items.
Excellent. So that'll be at our city manager's discretion, which I trust. So thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Ramos. Excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose Zimmerman and the city manager and Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni. Any other comments?
I have a question, Mayor. I think Leilani, if you can help shed some light. We talked about camera-based enforcement strategies. Can you tell me more about that? Like what's the approach? What's the process of determining the locations? How does that supposed to work? Like I just wanted to shed some light on the approaches towards that method.
Definitely. So we do have what are termed hotspots in the city. For instance, Callan, right by the cemetery, is a hotspot where, every day you can turn around. Our public works staff and even Republic Services can clean up, and less than 24 hours, you see additional items being dumped. So we would be working with our staff that is aware of those hotspots, investing in cameras, to place them, in public locations to see if we're able to catch violators. And from there, we're able to engage with them, educate them, hold them accountable for dumping in our city.
And I guess a follow-up question would be these like camera-based enforcement strategies? Is it strictly just for dumping? But what if there was some other violations that were happening? Does a net, is the net of criminality, is it just relegated just to dumping, or is it a larger net?
So ours would be specific to illegal dumping when we're placing them in hotspots. However, it's my understanding that the police department, if there is any criminal activity and there is a camera on private property or public property, they would be able to access that information in order to investigate that crime. So if that's something that we needed to work with our police department, of course, we would work with our city manager and ensure that all processes are being done correctly if we are going to utilize that.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rod. Any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Buenaventura.
Yeah, so I had a few questions, and let me just throw them out there. So can you tell me what is the triggering point to make it either an infraction or a misdemeanor? Because I saw that the infractions range from the several fines, but then all of a sudden it could be a misdemeanor. So I'm wanting to know what's the difference between one act that constitutes an infraction versus one act that will be prosecuted as a misdemeanor. And then also, I'm interested in knowing whether or not we can treat out of city offenders, like the people who come from San Francisco or a city from the South, for the specific purpose of dumping in Daly City, and whether or not we can punish them at a more severe rate for intruding and dumping on our city. And then I'm also interested in, I read the report and it said any person, and I'm wondering if we are able to in enforcement to capture corporations or companies that are offenders of this law that we have. And then I'm wondering this. I know that we have this free 1-year allowance of the people can get rid of stuff, and I'm actually curious about what covers that. Do mattresses count? Couches, refrigerators, recliners, big ticket sort of items. All right, so those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go by them one by one. So in terms of the infraction and misdemeanor, our current chapter kind of differentiates between the two. What staff is proposing is really just an administrative citation process. And so not going down the route of charging for the misdemeanor, but really just imposing these penalties based upon whether they're littering, illegally dumping, not abating as a private property owner, or if there's a major violation. So we wouldn't be going down that legal route for the infraction versus misdemeanor. In terms of treating offenders that are not in our city, I would defer to our city attorney, as I'm not sure that's more of a legal question. But I'll continue to answer your questions and I'll circle back to Rose. In terms of any person, so under the definitions of the proposed ordinance, a person does include corporation and businesses. It's not just an individual person, so it could include them as well. And the last question about what does our annual pickup include? So that does include mattresses and couches, big ticket items. We do have information on our website that shows exactly what can be included. And if they don't have a bulky item, they could also do like an additional 12 bags of garbage if they're doing a cleanup. And they can work with Republic because Republic also has information, which we will also be sending to residents so that they're aware.
Okay, so just to be clear on the infraction or the misdemeanor, so we're still going to have that as a statute, as an ordinance. We're just seeking to enforce it administratively rather than go that route. In other words, those ordinance aren't coming off. We're not removing them entirely, or are we?
I don't believe so. And Rose, if you can just maybe help to clarify. And a misdemeanor also would have to be something that is caught in progress or investigated by our police department as well to charge.
So my understanding is the ordinance is repealing and replacing chapter 8.23. The current chapter does allow for it to be charged as a misdemeanor or an infraction. So we are taking out the provisions to make it purely administrative citations. And I think the thought process there is that I think that the administrative citations are far more steeper than an infraction or a misdemeanor, which we are limited by state law in which a municipality can charge for infractions versus a misdemeanor. And so you know, there is also state law, which is the Penal Code 3.73.2, which does allow for this to be charged as a misdemeanor as well as a felony. But we thought that this ordinance, particular ordinance, repealed it in a sense to give the administrative power a lot more teeth in getting fines as opposed to criminal activity. But that is not to say, council member, that to the extent that this serves as evidence to proceed for a criminal action, you can certainly proceed with the criminal action as well, which would not include an infraction. It would include a misdemeanor and above for a criminal action under the penal code.
Okay, so my understanding then is we are removing the ordinances, the Daly City ordinances of an infraction and a misdemeanor when it comes to this violation. But even though we are doing that, there are state penal codes that cover these kind of offenders, ranging from misdemeanor to a felony.
That's correct. Yeah, and the felony could rise all the way up to imprisonment, and also an administrative fee. Well, not administrative fee, it would actually be a criminal fine of up to $10,000. What is interesting, you know, I know that in the past we have had them as infractions and as misdemeanors. So, you know, like a misdemeanor, you know, it's like a willful act that is committed in the presence of a police officer. What's nice about having it in this sense, where you have an administrative function, is this can serve as evidence for a district attorney to have a stronger case in the event that this is one of those most egregious type of illegal dumping. So it can serve for that purpose, which, you know, given the amount of evidence you would need to have an administrative penalty, you can certainly use that for the district attorney as an investigation as well.
Got it. And so what about the question of, is there an equal protection problem if we charge or if we treat out of count or out of city offenders differently by punishing them even more hard?
Yes, you did. You nailed it when you said the equal protection clause. There isn't, it's difficult to differentiate how you can have a constitutional basis to have an out of state for penalties as opposed to somebody that's in state. You wouldn't have an ordinance that can, I think, pass constitutional muster, if that's a better way of saying it. I mean, these are pretty steep fines when you have somebody that's pretty egregious. So I think it would be difficult and subject to challenge if we were to differentiate out-of-towners versus a local offender. And in the way this is met, an offender is an offender if you are charged or caught with illegal dumping in the city.
Okay.
Regardless of where they're from.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Buenaventura. Are there any other questions?
I do have a question, and I don't know if it's in with the ordinance per se, but I know we're talking about ways in which we can ensure that there's less illegal dumping. And the question I have is in regards to apartment complexes, units that are 6-unit or 4 units to 12 units. I know that as a resident in like single households, you're able to have a 1-day pickup. how does that work with multiple units in apartment complexes? Do each unit get um, 1 day pickup, or I think that's probably just a question in my mind around um, accessibility to these units, and it's just understanding, does each unit have a 1 day pickup, or is it just one in general? Because maybe around that we could find ways to support community members that might not know about it. I think the first question is, how does it work for apartment complexes?
So for our multifamily units, it actually varies. There are some units that Republic can work with them individually as tenants, other property owners that are coordinated as a whole. So they would work together to create an annual cleanup day, for instance, and then all of their members can put out the items that they want to discard. We're actually working with Republic to do a focused newsletter and education effort for those multifamily units so that the information is out there for not only the property owner, but for the tenants as well.
Okay, thank you. So it's really dependent on the type of apartment complex. And
Yeah.
it's okay. So so some complexes just have 1 day for the whole property?
Yes, that it's scheduled just 1 day, and mainly it has to do with like clearance of where they can put the items. So Republic saying for some units, there's not a lot of area and space where they can put it out. So that's why it's better when they do it as a whole unit, because they can bring the additional bins, have it placed within the property site, and then the cleanup is there, and it's not just out, in the right of way, blocking areas for pedestrians and for traffic.
Okay, and so the other question I have is, as a resident, I know that you get up to 12 bags. So for apartment complexes, is it multiplied by each unit? Like, for instance, each unit gets the opportunity to provide 12 bags of excess, you know what I'm saying, of what they need to discard. I think I just want clarification on that.
It's my understanding that it would be the equivalent times the number of units.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very helpful. I think that's wonderful that you are all trying to do more on a education piece of it, and working also with our small business owners that have these these units they rent out, the multi apartments, because if there is a disconnect around what is offered to tenants or other residents or whatnot, I think that that would be also helpful for them to know, right? I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe or when does it happen? When does the discarding happen? So when people leave. So when they do leave a unit, how I think the education part of it, with the owners letting their tenants know there's actually this 1 day pickup. I don't know, but just trying to look at ways to um, solve for that. But this is very helpful to know, and I'm glad that there's a coordinated effort. Thank you.
Definitely. And thank you, Vice Mayor. And just to add to that, we are also working with Republic Services to how to better coordinate with our property owners so that they can make sure that their tenants that are vacating know. So that instead of them just pushing the discarded items in the street, that we actually can coordinate an effort, whether it's at the end of the month or whatever the schedule is. Of course, the property owners are going to know when their tenants are vacating.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, I have a few for Leilani, and I really don't need an answer, but something to consider. And I guess this would apply to our city manager as well. Approving this ordinance is going to take a different way of doing things, to include maybe hiring staff. And I'm concerned about the cost recovery aspects of it. So I'm sure that that was taken into effect. Along to the city attorney's side, um, I believe in homeowner rights, and we had an issue in Daly City regarding garbage. And I'm thinking when it gets to the point where it obstructs the right of way, then we definitely have a problem and we need to do something. However, in most cases, the community may not be happy because if somebody decides to store goods on their front lawn, just as long as not it's obstructing the right of way, that's something we need to think of it. As they say, one person's garbage could be another person's treasure. And I'm sure we have to be aware of that. Camera-based enforcement, I also wanted to bring up, and I think Dr. Rod alluded to it. I think the primary importance for camera-based enforcement is to catch the violators. However, it does not preclude the fact that if a crime occurs, such as a kidnapping or a shooting, that we should not disable our law enforcement resources to resort to the camera to ask or to see if the camera may have caught something. But to use of the camera, other ways, say to gather intelligence about a particular group or protest, then I'm sure that our law enforcement would know that that is not the purpose of those cameras. But basically, we're trying to catch violators as it pertains to garbage dumping. However, if there's a crime that has been committed, I think those cameras would be a very good tool in getting information to help solve the crime. I know Callan is a very hot spot, and I am going to ask that if we do put up cameras or in any other hotspot, that it is clearly designated in the use of signs on the street. Littering is against the law. There is camera enforcement being employed. I think we need to make sure that those signs are posted so that the folks know. We don't want to hide anything, but at the same time, we want to eradicate this problem. So just a couple of things. And lastly, getting back to Callan, and I've driven by there so many times, and I know that this is not part of the agenda, but the parking, look at the vehicles that are parked there now. It's generally trucks, oversized vehicles, and I think that contributes to the dumping. So just something to think about if we'd have to change that. But, to get rid of the problem, it may be deep rooted in other aspects. Are we enabling the dumping? And that's by allowing these oversized pickup trucks and vehicles to park there. So just a few comments I wanted to make.
Thank you, Mayor. And we are working with our finance department to look at those processes for small haulers that are obtaining business licenses, as well as oversized vehicles that are pulling commercial parking permits with us.
That is outstanding. And by maintaining such a database, and if we did get some camera footage, I guess the investigation can include, let's check out databases of license plates. And, one thing leads to another. Very good. Very well covered. Thank you, Leilani. Okay, are there any other comments? Okay, at this time, I would like to open it up to public hearing. Public comments. And I'll ask Stephen if we have any comments on this particular item.
Okay, I am just checking. I'm refreshing the page real quick.
Okay.
We do not have any comments.
Thank you. I'd like to obtain a motion to close the public comments at this time.
Motion to close public comment?
Okay, we have a
Second.
first, and Dr. Rod, you're second. Okay, thank you so much. Any further discussion? Okay, I would like to make a motion for the city attorney to read by title only. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Madam City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Daly City, repealing and replacing Chapter 8.32 of the Daly City Municipal Code regarding illegal dumping and littering.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. Is there a council member who would like to introduce the ordinance? All right, I'll introduce. Okay, go ahead,
Mayor,
Council Member D. Go ahead.
I defer to you.
Okay, well, I'm kind of new at the council member. Thank you. So at this time, I would like to introduce the ordinance repealing and replacing Chapter 8.32 illegal dumping and littering. Okay, Madam City Attorney, do we have to vote on this?
No, just an introduction, just the motion.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. And we'll move on to item number 11. Disposition and development agreement between 1837 Juniper Sierra Hotel Development and LLC developer in the city of Daly City for the property located at 1837 Juniper Sierra Boulevard, Daly City. And I'll turn it over to staff, Ms. Zimmerman and Ms. Mothershead.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. I'll be giving the presentation this evening. Again, this is a disposition and development agreement for our final redevelopment property located at 1837 Juniper Sierra Boulevard. Initiated by the dissolution of redevelopment agencies in 2011, the City of Daly City's successor agency drafted a long-range property management plan which detailed disposition strategies for former redevelopment property. The property located at 1837 Juniper Sierra was included in the PMP as a site to be retained for future development. In March of 2017, the city marketed the site through a competitive RFQ process. On April 9, 2018, the City Council approved an exclusive negotiating agreement between the city and the developer for the property located there. During this time, the city and the developer have negotiated the terms and conditions of the DDA. The proposed DDA is for development of the property as a 200-room full-service lifestyle hotel and conference facility, which is proposed to be branded with a flag owned by Marriott International and proposed to be managed by Ambridge Hospitality, Equinox Hospitality, or an equivalent qualified operator. Business deal points for the proposed agreement have been previously negotiated with the City Council and are subject to this public hearing this evening. The deal points are specified in your staff report and in the attached DDA. I'll just go over a couple of them though, some of the highlights. First and foremost, the proposed purchase price for the site is $1 million and we'd be paid in full to the city at the close of escrow. And with that, the city is agreeing to discount permit fees related to building and planning permit processes at the time of building permit issuance. The developer will be required to submit a signed franchise agreement no later than 6 months following the close of escrow and shall commence construction of the project by no later than January 1, 2022. There are some provisions for prevailing wage requirements, and in addition to that, there's a living wage requirement where the developer is agreeing to pay a minimum level of compensation to all covered employees equal to at least $15.69 per hour, and to provide all covered employees with health insurance coverage and pension contributions comparable to union benefits applicable to each class of employee. The draft DDA was made available to the public pursuant to California Government Code. Staff is recommending that the city conduct the public hearing and consider approval of the disposition and development agreement. That concludes my presentation. In attendance this evening is the development team, as well as Cosmon, if there's any questions that I'm unable to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mothershead. Before we move further, I'd like to ask if Madam City Attorney, did you need to add on to anything in addition to Ms. Mothershead?
No, I think she covered it all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. For colleagues and the rest of council, we do have the developer and his associates here with us online. So do we have any questions for Ms. Mothershead or any of the developer and the consultants?
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. I know this is for the disposition of the property. I'm thinking further down the line as far as I think it's great that this is moving forward. It's been long awaited to have another hotel in Daly City. But what I'm asking is when there is operator or whatnot, as far as extensive outreach to local Daly City residents, as far as jobs, know that it's important to be able to provide jobs where people live and work, and so that's something that I just want to note. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor, for your comment. And actually, I'd like to turn it over to Ken for a comment or an update.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. We've worked pretty diligently over the last several years on really the developer selection process for this, which amounts to, I think, the 4th opportunity site within the city of Daly City. And it is good that we're bringing this to fruition tonight. In our estimation, I think a lot of folks have worked pretty hard to try to shape the project and shape a public-private partnership, if you will, between the city and the developer or the development team. I think that one of the greatest benefits is that from an economic development perspective, the opportunity to bring a hotel, full-service hotel to the city where there's literally only one current hotel in the city, I think is really pretty tremendous, notwithstanding the fact that we've just gone through or remain to be in the middle of sort of a pandemic. And in Cosmont's estimation on what's happening in the marketplace from a land use perspective is that the hotel industry has been hit extremely hard during this pandemic and the COVID circumstance. Retail and hospitality have been hit the hardest, if you will. So it's encouraging that I think we're able to bring this tonight in terms of a negotiated disposition and development agreement. You'll hear from me on the next item, and my colleague Joe Dieguez is on too to answer any questions, but you'll hear from me on the next item, which is the 2 different government reports, 52201 and 53083. So we can sort of round out the necessary requirements for reporting for the sale of a city property. But in any event, I think it's the project that is most encouraging with respect to the economic development benefit of a potential hotel, 200 full service rooms, high quality flag in the Marriott Sheraton brand, and for the developer to be in a position willing and able to acquire the property and move this thing forward.
Thank you, Ken. I think the question from the Vice Mayor was, I guess, pertains to marketing and our local community. And would that be possible in the sense of we would want community members, you know, qualified community members as employees where they live and work? Is that something that folks would consider?
Yeah, I believe that within the disposition and development agreement, there is that marketing effort for local employment. And so that was something that has been negotiated. And I'm sorry if I didn't answer that question more explicitly. I'm just excited that we're here and trying to get the hotel deal done. And I know it's been a tough road for the developer, for the city. So, but yes, I think that the local employment base is going to benefit from this project as a function of this agreement.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. Believe me, and I'm sure I'm speaking for the rest of council, we are very, very excited as well. But, you know, we have to maintain that poker face and, you know, ask those questions.
I understand. We don't feel comfortable laughing and smiling, but, you know, it'll be a good way to end the year for the city.
Ooh, didn't think about that. Okay. Are there any questions from council? Additional questions for the developer and the team? Okay. Not hearing any. I'd like to now open it up to public comment, and I'll defer to Stephen to see if we have any public comment at this time while you refresh the screen.
I refreshed the screen in advance this time, and there's no public comment on this one.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, I'll obtain a motion to close the public hearing at this time. Anyone?
Motion to close?
We have first, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Rod and Councilmember DiGiovanni. Okay, and excuse me, any further discussion? Okay, so the hearing has been closed, and any further discussion? Hearing none, would like to adopt the resolution. Would somebody like to make a motion to adopt the resolution, item number 11?
Motion to adopt a resolution.
Okay, we got two. I think Pam, you were first. Vice Mayor, you were second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. DiGiovanni,
Aye.
Ms. Manalo,
Aye.
Dr. Rod,
Aye.
Mr. Buenaventura,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvester.
Aye. Thank you so much. That item number 11 has passed. We're moving on to item number 12, which is the approval of a resolution approving Government Code Section 52201 and 53083 and summary report. Ms. Mothershead, I'll turn it over to you. Or would that be the city attorney in this particular case, Government Code?
I'm prepared to present.
Okay.
I'll actually just be introducing Ken anyway, but.
All right.
This item is for City Council to consider a resolution approving a summary report pursuant to Government Code Section 52201 and 53083 for the disposition and development of the property located at 1837 Huneborough Center Boulevard. Through ongoing negotiations, the City of Daly City and the developer created a draft disposition and development agreement that sets forth terms and conditions for the sale and development of the site. Prior to the sale of the site, and in order for the City of Daly City to be compliant with state law regarding the lease or sale of former redevelopment agency property, it is necessary that the city create and make available a fair use report pursuant to California Government Code Section 52201 and 53083. Government Code Section 52201 authorizes the city to sell or lease property to which it holds title for the purpose of creating economic opportunity. The code requires that the city must first secure approval of the proposed disposition from the City Council after a public hearing. A copy of the proposed DDA and a summary report of the proposed transaction has been made available for public inspection prior to the public hearing. Section 53083 of the California Government Code requires that prior to approving an economic development subsidy within its jurisdiction, a local agency must provide information in written form and on its website. Cosmont Companies, an independent consultant to the city, prepared the Government Code Section 5201 and 53083 summary reports in compliance with the code. And I just would like to pass it off to Ken Hira from Cosmont, who can share with us the findings of both those reports.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, we have our report, which is about 5 pages. It's a summary report, as Tatum mentioned, pursuant to sections 52201 and 53083 of the California Government Code. The City of Daly City is considering the sale of property, about 1.263 acres at 1837 Junipero Serra Boulevard in Daly City for the 200-room full-service hotel that we mentioned earlier. The background, again, is on a 52201 government code, the requirement being the agreement, and then the cost of the agreement is what needs to be evaluated. There are several items: the highest and best use of the agreement, the purchase price or the consideration, the difference or reason for the differences between the purchase price and the highest and best use, and the definition, if you will, of the economic opportunity. That's 52201. The 53083 report is related to any economic development subsidy. Clearly, if the purchase price is less than the highest and best use, there is an economic subsidy. That report needs to call out who the beneficiary is, what the schedule of that subsidy is, the dollar amount, the public purpose, the tax revenue that sort of offsets that subsidy, and then job creation. So our report, which is I know part of your staff report, outlines the primary terms of the proposed sale of the property from the city to the developer, is outlined in the DDA, and addresses the reporting requirements of both of those government codes. So moving into some of the facts, it's pretty clear the identity of the developer being a special or single purpose entity that will be formed, known as 1837 Junipero Serra Hotel LLC. And the parties that would be members to that, more or less, are Majestic Hospitality Group and AF Canta. Both party representatives are on this meeting. The summary of the DDA, as we've talked about, is a $1 million purchase price. And the project, of course, is the hotel, which is approximately 200 rooms and 8,500 square feet of meeting space, bar, and restaurant. The cost of the agreement are comprised of two different items. One is the reduction in planning and permitting fees, which is $150,000. And two is the difference between, in fact, the highest and best use and the purchase price. And in this instance, that difference, which I'll explain in more detail, is $2.77 million. So the $150,000 plus the $2.77 million equals $2.92 million in economic development subsidy. The estimate of the value, or highest and best use value, is $3.77 million, which was from a broker opinion of value in April of 2020. So that $3.77 million less the $1 million purchase price is where we come up with the $2.77 million in difference between values, plus the $150,000, and that's how you get the $2.92 million. There was a competitive process, just to remind everyone, dating all the way back to 2017. In order to pursue the development of the site, there were 4 qualified firms, but at the end of the day, one party remained interested enough in the opportunity, and that was the group that I just mentioned. And finally, we came to terms with $1 million purchase price. The reason for the $1 million purchase price is financial feasibility. So Cosmont Companies, as a consultant to the city, evaluated pro formas, evaluated the necessary returns that were needed by the development entity, and given the construction costs, the environment, the revenues, and the required return for the risk being taken, that $1 million was sort of what's considered the residual land value in the pro forma, and what in the maximum price essentially that the developer could offer. The explanation of the 2.77 million I've just gone through, but I want to focus now on the benefits. The economic benefits include approximately $1.9 million annually from revenues, fiscal revenues, and the second benefit is jobs. The job benefit or estimate is approximately 484 construction or temporary jobs and 150 permanent jobs. The guidelines within the government code would like there to be one job for every $35,000 of subsidy. And in our estimation, what this project will result in for the city is 1.8 jobs for the city. And so that's how we got comfortable and are accepting of the fact that the subsidy, which requires one job for every 35,000, is really at 1.8 jobs for every 35,000, because the jobs at 150 direct full-time jobs is above what would be the guidance within the government code that allows us to agree that we're willing to accept an economic development subsidy. Not to mention the $1.9 million of revenue over a 30-year period on present value is about $55 million. So those dollars go to offset effectively the economic development subsidy. The economic opportunity and public purpose, there are not just 150 permanent jobs and 484 jobs, but frankly, there's more than that. There's what's considered indirect and induced jobs. So in total, including direct, the city would benefit from 222 full-time jobs and 782 temporary jobs. In addition, the project will convert a long underutilized parcel of vacant land in really a high demand hospitality environment near public transit and near a major international airport. I'll deviate for a second from the report before I finish. And that is to say, again, in an environment where COVID has ceased a lot of development in many commercial sectors, and particularly in the hospitality sector, the benefit, if you will, of the city of Daly City only having one hotel is that you're in a very low supply environment. And it is our understanding that the developer and companies like Marriott would say, this is the type of environment, this is the kind of market we can still pursue an opportunity, because if we don't start construction for a couple of years, which is the processing time this might take, we'll be ready for the market to recover in an environment where you have a dearth of hotel rooms. So there's still an opportunity, and that's an sort of a qualitative benefit that I just want to add that's not necessarily in our report, but it's what I mentioned earlier. Let me just conclude by saying that the property will generate increased property taxes by approximately 3,200%, which is 32 times the value as compared to the 2003 value, which is also part of the government code test for 52201 and 53083, in order to define an economic opportunity. So that is far greater than the 15% guideline that is within the code of defining an economic opportunity. And lastly, the job creation of the 1.8, again, above the 1.0 per 35,000, is clearly above the guidance for what defines an economic opportunity. Therefore, the economic development subsidy is offset by a greater economic development opportunity pursuant to this combined report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ken. Are there any questions for Ken at this time or comments?
I do. I have a comment, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for that comprehensive, extensive report on the benefits our city would receive by moving forward with this hotel. And I think it's, we are at a juncture, and as you said, coming to fruition that has been long overdue. And I think it's exciting to see this on our agenda this evening. You did mention all of the job creations, which is wonderful to see because it's so close to public transit and whatnot. And it goes back to my question, and I'm looking at the draft. Is there language that does say that the developer will do, outreach within Daly City you know, community centers, etc. I think that that's just for me. I think I'm in full support of the project. I just need to know that it's codified, that there will be outreach to the local Daly City community in regards to the jobs.
So, Vice Mayor, I can respond. So there is specific language in the agreement that talks about the build out and construction for the developer to reach out to the local exchange and to reach out to local Daly City as it pertains to contractors. There are not specific language as it pertains to operations. That is not to say that that can't happen and the developers are here, but there is definitely specific language pertaining to outreach for local exchange and development and construction. And that is codified in the development agreement.
For clarifying that, I think I'm looking at the end use jobs at the site, and I think that's great that the construction jobs have that outreach. But I think for me, you know, it's not a mandate of local hire, but I'd like to see if there's a way to quantify what outreach methods would occur towards our Daly City residents for jobs.
Okay. I know the developer, I see Chris here. I don't know if you want to respond to that, Chris.
Sure. I didn't want to jump in too soon. I'm happy to respond, Mr. Mayor and City Council. And Vice Mayor, I appreciate your question. You know, typically the hiring process, I think that there are ways that we can sort of you know, meet your concerns. Most of what the hiring process that take place in the hospitality industry today is actually done all online. So, you know, one, I would say, you know, anybody who is in Daly City looking for job opportunities is or will be able to apply online. But then also reaching out into the community of, you know, being involved with job fairs would be another opportunity. It just, to be honest, so much in the industry has gone electronic. That's the typical way. So I think we can find a way between the job fairs and the electronic to try and to meet your concerns.
Thank you, Chris. That would be extremely helpful and wonderful to see. As you mentioned, whether it's electronically as far as outreach to send out to community centers for folks that are looking for jobs, or even work with the city of Daly City around making sure that these opportunities are sent to our residents. But I like your idea around having a job fair. And if there's any way that you can host even a virtual one or whatnot, but being able to, you know, I know that I'm very optimistic that as you all build, you know, there will, you know, definitely be a need for workers and all of that. So I'd love to see that also be part of the programming, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, and happy to discuss further as we finish up these documents and hopefully move this forward.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of comments.
Okay, please.
I know, Ken, you worked real hard and with these gentlemen and everybody that worked as a team, Tatum and my council. And it is an exciting opportunity to hear that we hit above the jobs, the 1.8. And I know how a lot of cities are going through a lot that with their hotels, and actually have neighbors that were working in the San Francisco hospitality, and they actually live here, which, as the Vice Mayor struck, that have experience. So it'd be great because now that I know that they have the experience, and which would be key, and others have lost their job and probably will not be able to go back. They were told to San Francisco in a full manner for I don't know how long, and that our location and just culminates with everything else, that this is exciting times for us, although it's still COVID, but optimistic and what we can do here, and that we have great things here. We have golf courses, we have our Thornton Beach, we have San Bruno Mountain. So we can capitalize on the things that we have, and that we also have our golf tournaments and many other things that will attract the people. And I guess you've already done those many studies, and it'll be a great, and even culturally with our different diversity, that it'll be a busy site and with a great vibrant. It'll bring a lot of vibrance to our city. So I appreciate it, looking forward to it. And our city attorney and city manager and everyone, and Mr. Nevin, the finance is really like keyed out. So we're ending it this year. And even though it's ending this way, it's a great way to end, as you said, Ken, as we're moving forward together in a bright way for people, and that they will have jobs, you know, an opportunity to have a job. Just even that in itself, when you talk to people, it's really kind of heartbreaking, especially the restaurants and things like that, which have the experience. They can actually bring it to where they live. So thank you very much. And thank you, Chris, for tapping on that, and Vice Mayor as well, and Mayor and Council. Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Council Member. Are there any other comments? Okay, I'll make one comment. Ken, I guess I kind of jumped the gun because you covered a lot pertaining to Government Code Section 52201 and 53083. And it looks like as a result of that government code, those codes, there's a lot of protections in place. And you did an outstanding job in going through that. And actually, you've given me a homework assignment because I'm going to read more about these government codes after this council meeting. But I want to say outstanding. In addition to Chris, Henry, the answer to your question to the Vice Mayor definitely shows your organizations we appreciate your willingness to help accommodate us, because you know Daly City is a unique place, and we are so happy that again, as Ken said, that this is coming to fruition after so many years. And I was waiting and just taking notes, and I wrote down a word, and I have it down here on the piece of paper. And within the past 2 minutes, 2 people said the same word. I'll be the third. That word was optimistic. And Ken, in your report, what we forgot to show, even though the developer is willing to take this chance, us showing the optimism here in Daly City will also show the community that we are optimistic and things are going to turn out and get better. Councilmember DiGiovanni said it, and so did the Vice Mayor. That same word, optimistic. So I think I can speak for most of us. We're optimistic, and this is not going to last forever. So I want to say job well done. Great report, and thank you all so much. Okay, are there any other comments for Ken, Tatum, Rose, or Mr. Henry? Mr. Dieguez, you've been kind of quiet tonight. I guess we didn't call on you, but did you want to add anything before we move on?
No, I believe Ken really touched on everything in the report. But thank you for the opportunity to work on this with you all.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Okay, at this time, I would like to open to the public comment at this time. Do we have anything?
No public comment on this one.
Thank you so much. I'll entertain a motion to close the public comment period.
Motion to close.
Motion to close.
Okay, Council Member DiGiovanni, second by Dr. Rod. The public comment period has been closed. Okay, next I'll entertain a motion to accept approval of the resolution approving Government Code Section 52201 and 53083. Anyone?
Motion to approve resolution.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Giovanni,
Aye.
Ms. Manalo,
Aye.
Dr. Rod,
Aye.
Mr. Buenaventura,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvester.
Aye. Thank you so much. Item number 11 has been passed, and it was a long time coming. Thank you all, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a happy Thanksgiving, all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item number 13, the appropriate funds and award of construction contract for the Central Corridor Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project. And Ms. Chan, oh, there's Ms. Chan. Okay, Ms. Chan, you have the floor.
All right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, staff is requesting that the City Council approve the design documents for the Central Corridor Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Improvements Project, affirm the National Environmental Policy Act determination of categorical exclusion, and the California Environmental Quality Act determination of categorical exemption, accept all bids, waive minor irregularities, and award a construction contract to Golden Bay Construction of Hayward, California for the base bid, add alternate 2, and add alternate 3 in the amount of $2,117,549.25, appropriate $731,022 of AB 1600 transportation funds to fully fund the project, and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary contracts to complete the project. In 2015, Daly City was selected for an active transportation program grant for the Central Corridor Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Improvements Project. The city received $2,019,000 in ATP funds by leveraging $154,000 in Transportation Development Act Article 3 grant and matching the ATP grant with $103,000 in local funds. The Central Corridor Pedestrian and Bicycle Improvements Project includes both bicycle and pedestrian improvements, sidewalk gap closure, and completes the last remaining bicycle and pedestrian improvements identified in the city's 2013 Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. The scope of work includes 6 major areas. The first area is installing Class 2 and bike lanes on Eastmore and Westmore Avenue, Class 3 bike routes on San Pedro, East Market, and Guadalupe Canyon Parkway, new 88 curb ramps, new pedestrian bulb outs, and 2 speed feedback signs will also be installed along this east-west corridor. Next, along Juniper Serra between John Daly and the southern city limits, Class 3 bike routes will be added, as well as new ADA compliant curb ramps. The third area will focus on the west side of Mission Street between San Pedro and A Street, where we will be installing about 1,050 linear feet of new sidewalk, where there isn't any sidewalk today. Of the 1,050 linear feet of sidewalk, approximately 370 of that is located within unincorporated San Mateo County. The fourth area is at the intersection of Juniper Serra and John Daly. At this intersection, we will install new bulb outs, widen the crosswalk, and remove a portion of the fence at the southeast corner to improve pedestrian visibility. The fifth area focuses on improvements at the intersection of Juniper Serra and Washington. A new pedestrian crossing across Washington Street will be added. New curb ramps, pedestrian push buttons, and pedestrian countdown signals will also be installed. And the last area is the intersection at Juniper Serra and San Pedro, where some of the vegetation will be replaced with low vegetation on the southeast corner to increase pedestrian visibility. Sage Consultant Engineers help prepare the construction documents with input from city staff. The project was advertised on September 27th, 2020, and 4 bids were received on October 26, 2020, with bids ranging from $2,117,549.25 to a high of $2,713,434.39. The lowest responsible bid is determined based on the total sum of the base bid at alternate 1, at alternate 2, and at alternate 3. The base bid includes all the pedestrian and bicycle improvements described earlier. At alternate 1 is for the adjustment of Comcast utility boxes. At alternate 2 includes the adjustment of AT&T utility boxes. And at alternate 3 is for the relocation of a city streetlight pole. All 3 at alternates are being recommended to be included with the construction contract award, as it allows the cities some flexibility to exclude the work if Comcast and AT&T performs the work with their own forces. If the city's contractor performs the work, both Comcast and AT&T would reimburse the city for the cost of the work. Golden Bay Construction of Hayward is the apparent low bidder and has been in business since 1983. They hold the required Class 3 contractor's license, which is current and in good standing. They've done similar work for other cities along the peninsula, including San Bruno, San Mateo, and South San Francisco. Golden Bay Construction met the disadvantaged business enterprise participation goal of 10% for the project. They will be using disadvantaged business enterprises subcontractors for electrical, slurry sealing, signing and striping work on the project for approximately 20% of the contract cost. If approved, the project is expected to begin construction in January 2021 and be completed by September 2021. Estimated construction cost for the Central Corridor Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project is $2,435,182, which includes $2,117,549.25 for the construction contract award and an additional $317,632.75 for construction contingency and contract administration. An additional $731,022 above the previously appropriated $2,019,000 of ATP funds, $154,000 of TDA Article 3 funds, and $103,000 in AB 1600 transportation funds is needed for the project. This action will transfer $731,022 from the AB 1600 transportation funds to the project account to fully fund the Central Corridor project. In summary, staff recommends that the City Council approve the design documents for the Central Corridor Bicycle and Pedestrian Improvements Project, affirm the NEPA determination of categorical exclusion and the CEQA determination of categorical exemption, accept all bids, waive minor irregularities, and award a construction contract to Golden Bay Construction for the base bid at alternate 1, at alternate 2, and at alternate 3 in the amount of $2,117,549.25, appropriate $731,022 of AB 1600 transportation funds to fully fund the project, and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary contracts to complete the project. Staff is available for any additional comments or questions.
Thank you, Ms. Chan. Do we have any questions or comments from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
I guess the word optimistic comes in play again because we're also ending where we're improving our pedestrian safety. And thanks to you, Ms. Chan and Mr. Chu and crew And you always do it with all these grants and great awards and however you figure it out. And that Juniper Sarah and John Daly, which has always been the one with the fence and the problem and many of the identified areas, you're going to do the bulb outs and the design and everything in-house, which is great. So I just want to applaud you and thank you. And I know this is not applicable, but congratulate Shirley Chan for her finance committee appointment on commute.org because of her great work. I want to let everybody know that she continues to accelerate and represent our city, and that she's so outstanding that it is her that everyone in that committee and that board supported and wanted her on that. So bravo. And thank you, Mr. Chu. Thank you, Ms. Chan. So excited.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Di Giovanni. I'm kind of getting jealous because I miss commute. I miss it so much. Thank you for that, and congratulations, Ms. Chan. Is there any other comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for all the hard work that staff has done. Thank you for that presentation, Shirley, and also your work, Mr. Chu. You know, it's so important to see these changes happen, especially around pedestrian safety, bicycle for our cyclists, and we see more of them on our streets in Daly City, and seeing the areas in which you've determined around where there's necessity is so important. So thank you for your professionalism, also attention to detail, and this all just ensures that you know, our residents and also folks that visit Daly City or ride through Daly City are safe. And so I really applaud all the work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay, are there any other comments? Okay, hearing none. I see Shauna is smiling there, so I'm going to give you kudos right now, Shauna. It's slightly a different subject, but it still pertains to our streets and pavement. The MTC just put out a report regarding paved conditions of the whole Bay Area and the cities. And a good to excellent score is 90%. And Daly City came in at 81%.
Wow.
So, and the one who beat us was Dublin at 85%. So I'd like to thank staff and Ms. Maltby and Mr. Chu on this. This particular item that we're about to vote on, I'm sure will increase our pavement conditions in Daly City, especially when we're making it safe for our bicyclists. So I just thought I'd put that out there, and thank you so much. All right, any other comments at this time? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept item number 13 in the appropriation of funds and award of construction contract.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Di Giovanni. Any further discussion? May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Di Giovanni,
Aye.
Ms. Manalo,
Aye.
Dr. Rod,
Aye.
Mr. Buenaventura,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvester.
Aye. Okay, that item number 13 has passed. Again, thank you, staff, and keep up the great work.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item is item number 14, and this is the second reading of the ordinance number 1440, where we're adding section 5.92 of the Title 15 of the Daly City Municipal Code regarding short-term rentals. Again, this is the second reading, and I'll turn it over to Madam City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. This item came before the City Council as an introduction of the ordinance for a short-term rental. Tonight, this evening, the ordinance is up for adoption. It's ordinance number 1444 of the Municipal Code regarding short-term rentals.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. Is there any comments before we move on? Okay, Stephen, did we get any comments on this particular item?
I sifted through all the comments we received and no, none on this item.
All right, thank you so much. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance. Anyone?
Motion to adopt ordinance.
Have a first.
Second.
All right, second by Dr. Rod. Any further discussion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Miss Di Giovanni,
Aye.
Ms. Manalo,
Aye.
Dr. Rod,
Aye.
Mr. Buenaventura,
Aye.
Mr. Sylvester.
Aye. Okay, thank you so much. And Madam City Attorney, for your due diligence and staying up on this matter. And thanks to everyone who participated, and the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is public appearances and oral communications, and I'll defer to Stephen.
Okay, we have a lot of comments tonight, so bear with me as I read. Some of these I already know just by the amount of words that they'll kind of be over 2 minutes. Let me pull up the screen here. Okay, the first comment is from Nadia Bick, and it says, "Dear Daly City Council, my name is Nadia Conrad Bick, and I am a Daly City resident. I'm asking the City Council to ensure transparent budgeting and public oversight when it comes to new revenue received from Measure Q funds. I am requesting that the City Council hold a stakeholder public forum to ensure the community is engaged and provides input on how the funds will be spent. In alignment with cities across the state and our governor's actions to explore ways to dismantle structural racism in California, I write to you to ensure that Daly City directs all resources that may be derived from Measure Q towards low-income Black and Brown communities first, and not towards the police department that already has an inflated budget comprised of over 40% of the city's spending. In examining the agenda items for this meeting, I also urge you to never again increase the DCPD budget, including any salary increases for the police chief. In addition to the Measure Q funding Daly City Fire Department will receive, I offer the following reform recommendation for this budget to reflect the true priorities that address public safety at its root causes and to address long overdue policies to reduce the harm inflicted on Black and Brown communities in Daly City. One priority I believe that the Daly City budget should prioritize is to invest in early childhood and elementary education. Given that Black and Brown students in Daly City have some of the worst academic outcomes in the state is unconscionable. Daly City must direct at least 50% of all new revenue to improve outcomes for early education and youth development for Black and Brown youth in Daly City. This includes additional resources that are specifically targeted to subsidized and accessible pre-K and elementary schools, after-school programming, summer youth and enrichment programs that show children the city beyond their neighborhoods, early childhood programs, hiring Black and Brown teachers and therapists, and other data-driven community-based early childhood interventions to improve education and developmental outcomes for youth between age 0 and 3rd grade. Research has consistently shown that if a city invests early and heavily in this area, it reduces youth involvement in the criminal justice system and hence reduces negative interactions with police. Daly City must also ensure the removal of any/all police from school settings and disallow police calls on children. In solidarity, Nadia Conrad Beck. The next comment is from Bella Shelby. It says, "Dear Daly City Council, my name is Bella Shelby and I am a Daly City resident. I am asking the City Council to ensure transparent budgeting and public oversight when it comes to new revenue received from Measure Q funds. Can the City Council host a stakeholder public forum to ensure the community is engaged and provides input on how the funds will be spent? I urge you to never again increase the DCPD budget, including any salary increases for the police chief. I also urge you to cut the police budget by an amount commensurate with the work they will no longer perform. In accordance with the priorities shared in the Daly City for Black Lives letter, we are asking that you utilize the lessons from the data to redirect funding from the DCPD budget in order to supplement any funds from Measure Q that are not able to meet the demands shared in the DC for BL letter. As a high school student and resident of Daly City, I don't feel safe around the police, and their job is to protect us. That is a major issue. The fact that I have friends and family that have been profiled and mistreated by Daly City Police should be alarming to you, as no one deserves that kind of treatment. Daly City should be a safe place for anyone who resides here, and the police need to reflect that, but instead they made many of us feel unsafe, yet you constantly give them more and more money. We need more funding to go to our communities and schools. While our schools don't have all the resources we need, while residents are struggling to buy necessities for their families, and the list goes on, the police get raises, but the community doesn't, and that's embarrassing for this city. If I don't feel safe in the city you overlook, you're not doing your job. You need to work harder at truly serving and being for the people. We are coming to you for change and are willing to work with you to make it happen. Listen to the voice of the people. You were appointed to help and lead. The safest communities are places that don't center the police. In Daly City, we centered the police with 41% of the city's budget going to DCPD, the largest allocation for our city. Future allocations must reflect the true priorities that address public safety at its root causes, and the council must address long overlooked police policies to reduce the harm inflicted on Black and Brown communities in Daly City. I, along with organizations like Daly City for Black Lives, stand ready to support and offer further guidance and input into the recommendations provided tonight and to ensure that Daly City establishes a new standard for community support and response. Thank you, Bella Shelby. Okay. Okay, the next comment is from Warren Shelby. And it says, Dear Daly City Council, my name is Warren Shelby and I am a Daly City resident. I'm asking the City Council to ensure transparent budgeting and public oversight when it comes to new revenue received from Measure Q funds. Can the City Council host a stakeholder public forum to ensure the community is engaged and provides input on how the funds will be spent? I urge you to never again increase the DCPD budget, including any salary increases for the police chief. I also urge you to prosecute officers for excessive use of force. As a Black man, whenever I come in contact with police officers, even the good-intentioned ones, I feel a certain amount of trepidation and uncertainty. Community and safety are usually not the sentiments I'm overcome by. I recall being pulled over after leaving the parking lot of the Colma Target Shopping Center. One officer approached my driver's side while a second one watched me from the passenger side. Initially, I didn't see him, but I felt a menacing presence as I responded to the officer's accusatory line of questioning. And when I did finally get the chance to survey my surroundings, as I sat nervously answering the antagonizing line of questioning, there in my window was a face full of anger, rage, and disconnect and judgment. That startled me. When I was asked if I had any questions, I responded with, yes. One, why did you pull me over? I was told in a condescending tone about some yellow registration tag on the car that needed to be updated. I thought that's interesting because as I watched other cars pass me by, I could hardly see, if at all, the tags. So I asked, are you sure it wasn't because you saw a car with tinted windows and a Black man driving? He seemed surprised and caught off guard by my calling it as it really was and chuckled as he repeated the exact/rehearsed words a second and third time. So I dismissed it as I felt the other officer's anger and distrust of me rising. I was asked for my license and registration and if I had any warrants. I said no. I was then told that if everything checks out, I would no longer be detained and could continue to where I was headed. It was dark, the lights were bright, and I had a nervous officer staring at me like I was a criminal with a gun and rap sheet to match. I felt humiliated and afraid to even scratch my head as it itched. After being detained by the concerned cop and the hateful/vengeful cop, my driver's license was returned to me and I was free to go. However, by then my mood, desire to finish shopping, running errands, and picking up food for my family was ruined. So I went home feeling dejected, but thankful to escape without further incident. While I was being detained, I couldn't help but wonder, who will protect me from the protector? Why am I being demonized, criminalized, and forced to feel like I've committed some great offense worthy of all this attention from the multiple cops, cars, and passerby? If you don't know this feeling, if you have yet to experience this end of the traffic stop, count yourself very blessed and very fortunate. Profiling has long plagued my community, communities of color, and the traditionally/historically marginalized peoples. until our communities are willingly recognized by cops, law enforcement, and the justice system as citizens and part of the community they take an oath to protect and serve, and until true reform is enacted upon and within the criminal justice system that truly balances the scales of justice and does away with the racist, targeted rhetoric and legislation, the enormous rift that divides these communities will continue to fester, build momentum, blind and mangle those it's imposed upon. The safest communities are places that don't center the police. In Daly City, we center the police with 41% of the city's budget going to DCPD, the largest allocation for our city. Future allocations must reflect the true priorities that address public safety at its root causes, and the council must address long overlooked policies to reduce the harm inflicted on Black and Brown communities in Daly City. I, along with organizations like Daly City for Black Lives, stand ready to support and offer further guidance and input into the recommendations provided tonight and to ensure that Daly City establishes a new standard for community support and response. Okay. Okay. The next comment is from Joanna Rosales, and it says, I am asking City Council and staff to ensure transparency and accountability by including the community in your budgeting process on the approved Measure Q funds. I request that City Council and staff host a public forum to ensure the community provides input on how the funds will be spent. We must invest in behavioral health emergency response, especially during a global pandemic. Tax dollars are better spent towards investing in community-based resources such as mental health and substance abuse crises when they occur, rather than the pockets of the police chief, whose department takes up over 40% of the whole Daly City budget. Thank you, and I look forward to our community engaging and working together. The next comment is from Jeremy Jansen. It says, Dear Daly City Council, my name is Jeremy Jansen, and I was born and raised in Daly City. It is high time that City Council ensure transparent budgeting and public oversight when it comes to new revenue received from Measure Q funds. It is imperative now more than ever that City Council host stakeholder public forums frequently to ensure that the community is engaged and included in how funds will be spent that directly affect us every day. I urge you, City Council, to never again increase the DCPD budget, and that includes any salary increases for the police chief. We have been asking to reallocate police funding into community-based programs, and yet the salary of one officer I have worked in various school settings, from private preschools in San Francisco to the public school system in Seattle, along with going through the public school education here in Daly City all my life. Police presence in a school setting where police are still allowed to carry their guns is not a situation or place I would call safe. As a teacher responsible for the health and well-being of my students, no matter age, police presence absolutely has no place in schools. I urge council to ensure to sever any partnerships with police and disallow police calls on children. At a time where the city and the nation are calling for officials to dissect the current status quo that upholds practices that are outdated and not commonly community oriented, I urge council to really make an effort to try to understand where the people are coming from. The safest communities are places that people have resources and know where they can go in times of need that do not include police. Future allocations must reflect the true priorities that address public safety at its root causes. I, along with organizations like Daly City for Black Lives, stand ready to support and offer further guidance and input into the recommendations provided tonight, and to ensure that Daly City establishes a new standard for community support and response. The next comment is from Vinuta Naik. It says, Dear Daly City Council, my name is Vinuta Naik, and I am an attorney with Community Legal Services in East Palo Alto. And the acronym is CELESPA. CELESPA serves community members in San Mateo County and throughout the region. I am asking the City Council to ensure transparent budgeting and public oversight when it comes to new revenue received from Measure Q funds. Can the City Council host a stakeholder public forum to ensure the community is engaged and provides input on how the funds will be spent? I also urge you to never again increase the DCPD budget, including any salary increases for the police chief. Further, we urge the council to implement the following actions. Improve outcomes for early education and youth development. We must direct at least 50% of all new revenue to improve outcomes for early education and youth development for Black and Brown youth in Daly City. This includes additional resources that are specifically targeted to subsidized and accessible pre-K and elementary schools, after-school programming, summer youth and enrichment programs that show children the city beyond their neighborhoods, early childcare programs, hiring Black and Brown teachers and therapists, and other data-driven community-based early childhood interventions to improve education and developmental outcomes for youth between age 0 and 3rd grade. Ensure the removal of any and all police from school settings and disallow police calls on children. Invest in behavioral health emergency response to ensure that properly trained professionals are dispatched to de-escalate crises when they arise and can shepherd people into proper treatment facilities and services that are available. When allocating any new funds in the context of public safety, this is not synonymous with policing, we must ensure that the proper community-based resources and supports are able to respond immediately to mental health and substance use crises when they occur. Cut the police budget by an amount commensurate with the work they will no longer perform. In accordance with the priorities shared in the DC for BL letter, we are asking you to utilize the lessons from the data to redirect funding from DC PD budget in order to supplement any funds from Measure Q that are not able to meet the demands shared in the DC for BL letter. Prosecute officers for excessive use of force. Last year, California passed AB 392, which establishes new standards for police officers' use of deadly force. Currently, an officer that violates these standards is not necessarily subject to criminal prosecution. This cannot remain the case in Daly City. The city has authority to and must take action to raise the standard of conduct for police officers in our city by imposing criminal penalties for those that use excessive and deadly force. Invest in COVID-19 health protections. People of color, particularly African Americans, are experiencing more serious illness and death due to COVID-19. This debilitating viral pandemic is disproportionately killing people of color at 6 times the rate of white people, and we need transparent emergency planning that prioritizes neighborhoods like Midway Village and the Bayshore when allocating COVID-19 testing resources. We must also address barriers to testing and care and employ culturally informed engagement approaches. The safest communities are places that don't center the police. In Daly City, we center the police with 41% of the city budget going to DCPD, the largest allocation for our city. Future allocations must reflect the true priorities that address public safety at its root causes, and the council must address long overlooked policies to reduce harm inflicted on Black and Brown communities in Daly City. I, along with organizations like Daly City for Black Lives, stand ready to support and offer further guidance and input into the recommendations provided tonight and to ensure that Daly City establishes a new standard for community support and response. And this person also provides their phone number and email for contact. The next comment is from Holly Lim. It says, "Good evening, City Council. My name is Holly, and I am a Daly City resident. I'm asking the City Council to ensure transparent budgeting and public oversight when it comes to new revenue received from Measure Q funds. Can the City Council host a stakeholder public forum to ensure the community is engaged and provides input on how the funds will be spent? I also urge you to never again increase the DCPD budget, including any salary increases for the police chief. In addition, prosecute officers for excessive use of force. In 2019, California passed AB 392, which establishes new standards for police officers' use of deadly force. Currently, an officer that violates these standards is not necessarily subject to criminal prosecution. This cannot remain the case in Daly City. The city has the authority to and must take action to raise the standard of conduct for police officers in our city by imposing criminal penalties for those that use excessive and deadly force. This is particularly needed when unarmed people are killed and harmed by police officers. This is the only way to effectively deter future instances of unjustifiable force being used on Black and Brown people and to hold violators accountable to their actions. I, along with organizations like Daly City for Black Lives, stand ready to support and offer further guidance and input into the recommendations provided tonight and to ensure that Daly City establishes a new standard for community support and response." The next comment is from Tony Samara. This is on behalf of the People's Alliance of San Mateo County. Dear Daly City Council, the People's Alliance of San Mateo County works for social justice and equity in housing, healthcare, education, immigration, the environment, and criminal justice. The People's Alliance is encouraged to see that residents in cities across San Mateo County are also standing up and marching to say enough. San Mateo County is not immune to the problems afflicting the nation, and and we'll need to do our part to dismantle systems of injustice. We have our own history of racial discrimination in housing, in education, in health, and in the policing of Black and Brown communities. We write this letter in support of our allies in Daly City who are asking the City Council to ensure transparent budgeting and public oversight when it comes to new revenue received from Measure Q funds. Can the City Council host a stakeholder public forum to ensure the community is engaged and provides input on how the funds will be spent? We also urge you to never again increase the DCPD budget, including any salary increases for the police chief. While Black people make up less than 1% of the population in San Mateo County, they account for 11% of all arrests and 27% of those killed or seriously injured by the Sheriff's Department. Similarly, Latinx people make up 18% of the population in SMC, but account for 43% of arrests and 47% of those killed or seriously injured by the Sheriff's Department. Our Sheriff's Department has a higher rate of use of deadly force than 87% of police departments in the state of California, and showed more racial bias in arrests and use of deadly force than 92% of all of other departments in the state. We must do better. The People's Alliance, along with organizations like Daly City for Black Lives, stands ready to support and offer further guidance and input into the recommendations provided tonight, and to ensure that Daly City establishes a new standard for community support and response. The next comment is from Kamsuk Insisengme. I am sorry for the pronunciation there. Dear Daly City Council, my name is Kamsuk, and I go to school in Daly City. I'm asking the City Council to ensure transparent budgeting and public oversight when it comes to new revenue received from Measure Q funds. Can the City Council host a stakeholder public forum to ensure the community is engaged and provides input on how the funds will be spent? I also urge you to never again increase the DCPD budget, including any salary increases for the police chief. Not only that, I ask the City Council also invest in behavioral health emergency responses to ensure that properly trained professionals are dispatched to de-escalate crises when they occur and can shepherd people into proper treatment facilities and services that are available. When allocating any new funds in the context of public safety, not synonymous with policing, we must ensure that the proper community-based resources and supports are available to respond immediately to mental health and substance use crises when they occur. Thank you. And the next one is from Jill Aguinaldo. And it says, Dear Daly City Council, my name is Jill Aguinaldo, and I am a Daly City resident. I'm asking the City Council to ensure transparent budgeting and public oversight when it comes to new revenue received from Measure Q funds. Can the City Council host a stakeholder public forum to ensure the community is engaged and provides input on how the funds will be spent? I also urge you to never again increase the DCPD budget, including any salary increases for the police chief. Invest in COVID-19 health protections. People of color, particularly African Americans, are experiencing more serious illness and death due to COVID-19. This debilitating viral pandemic is disproportionately killing people of color at 6 times the rate of white people, and we need transparent emergency planning that prioritizes neighborhoods like Midway Village and the Bayshore when allocating COVID-19 testing resources. We must also address barriers to testing and care and employ culturally informed engagement approaches. The safest communities are places that don't center the police. In Daly City, we center the police with 41% of the city's budget going to DCPD, the largest allocation for our city. Future allocations must reflect the true priorities that address public safety at its root causes, and the council must address long overlooked policies to reduce the harm inflicted on Black and Brown communities in Daly City. I, along with organizations like Daly City for Black Lives, stand ready to support and offer further guidance and input into the recommendations provided tonight, and to ensure that Daly City establishes a new standard for community support and response. I'm sorry I'm repeating myself here. The next comment is from Jeanette Armas, and it says, we ask the City Council to ensure transparent budgeting and public oversight when it comes to new revenue received from Measure Q funds. Can the City Council host a stakeholder public forum to ensure the community is engaged and provides input on how the funds will be spent? We also urge you to never again increase the DCPD budget, including any salary increases for the police chief. And the next comment is from, actually, that might be the last one. Let me double check real quick. That was the last comment.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. That's it for public comments at this time. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is appointments. Does anyone have any appointments? Okay, I have one appointment. I would like to reappoint Ms. Teresa Proaño to the Planning Division. I believe her term will be expiring in the month of December. So are there any questions, or we take a vote on that? Or does anyone have any questions? Okay, I guess we should take a vote to make it documented. So I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Ms. Teresa Proaño to the Planning Commission.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is there any further comments at this time? Okay, all those in, Madam City Attorney, I guess we can go on a all in favor rather than a, oh, this would require a roll call vote, wouldn't it?
No, no roll call needed, Mr. Mayor. A voice vote on the motion is fine.
Thank you so much, Madam City Attorney. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is reports. We'll start off with item number 15, council committee reports.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll report with our cannabis committee report. We had a meeting Friday the 13th, and we talked about a couple of things. One was a recommended application process for those that want to apply for a business license. Another one was a proposed overlay district of locations of where cannabis retail can be sold. So to really look at the map of Daly City, we were looking at equity. We didn't want to provide a map where it was concentrated in one area of Daly City, but we wanted to find opportunities to sell throughout the city. And so we came out with an overlay district, a recommended map. If Councilmember Buenaventura wants to add on, feel free to do so as well.
No, Dr. Rod, I think you covered it very well. So I'm
Okay.
looking forward to having the item on the agenda. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then I have
Great.
another report. Oh, go ahead.
Great, Dr. Rod. We've been waiting for this for quite some time. I appreciate the assistance and the leadership between both of you on that particular committee. Do you know offhand if maybe staff can answer this? Have we made a mechanism for how you say equity amongst the applicants who will be applying, you know, instead of big corporations coming in? I mean, we want to try to offer an opportunity for other applicants. Have that been discussed?
As far as I know it's a lottery process, but if the staff wants to hop in and provide their insight, I welcome their comments as well.
Thank you, Dr. Rod. Tatum?
Yeah, the draft revisions that were shown to the committee at the last meeting show a lottery process. So I think what we would expect to do, well, first of all, the map was slightly revised to create various districts. And so each district gets one cannabis related business. And then we would accept applications on a given date up to a certain date. And if only one application is received per district, then we would go ahead and process that one. But in the event that we have more than one application, it wouldn't be a competitive process, but rather a lottery process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Rod, go ahead. You had something else?
Yes, and then I also have I attended the Peninsula Clean Energy meeting this past Thursday, and we talked about different issues such as the load impact between last year. They've seen a 5% decrease in total PCE load compared to the same period last year in 2019. That's due to being sheltered in place. We also talked about, we approved a purchase agreement for renewable supply with Sky River Wind. So adding wind to the portfolio for clean energy for the county. And then also there is updates on the 2020 new electric vehicle rebate program. So the 2020 new EV rebate program will offer rebates of $1,000 towards the cost of a new fully electric vehicle and $700 for a plug-in hybrid. So if you want to check out more information, you can go to this website, Penn Clean Energy. So it's PENCLEAN energy.com/new EV, NEWEV. Also, if you want to do they're also sponsoring an opportunity to experience test driving for electronic vehicles with a $200 rebate towards rental of an EV and assistance in setting up at home or at dealership test drives. So you could also find it on the websites at PENCLEANENERGY.com. So PennCleanEnergy.com/EV test drive. And that's all my committee reports for this period.
Thank you, Dr. Rod. You forgot one. And I actually look forward to hearing your report on PCE. Matter of fact, I'm cheating a little bit because I got my notice right here. And it says they will offer a $200 rebate for renting an EV. Wow.
Oh, yes.
So, and so for everyone, don't forget that rebate is good if you purchase by December 31st. December 31st.
Correct,
so it's only,
yes.
So just want to give everyone a heads up. Be careful what you wish for. That's a hint. Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Rod. Any other?
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. Any other committee reports?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, please.
Yes. Councilmember DiGiovanni.
Yes, I'd like to report that we had a commute.org meeting. And one of the biggest takeaways from this meeting was that a lot of focus used to be before the COVID was on tech jobs, tech people, moving them around. So there's been a big switch and there's been a great consensus among our cities and our county that we focus on the essential workers and that we focus on getting them around, and also the ones that have not lost their jobs, how to get them going so where they can have accessibility for them to get to and from using the free shuttles. People don't realize on commute.org, these shuttles are free. So they're going to put some signage on the outside of the shuttles. It was suggested by one of our city colleagues and council members. So they're going to work on that part. And also the fact that they're going to also look into equity when it comes to e-bikes, because they feel like that's going to be a switch as well to try to keep people off the road. But yet they're expensive for a lot of people, especially in our city and East Palo Alto and other areas. So they're going to offer, they don't know the amount yet, but it will be applicable to those with a different income bracket. And socioeconomics will be playing in an economic equity focus. So the new strategic plan is going to be planned starting already, and we haven't heard it unveiled yet, but the focus again implies that the equity lens is there at commute.org with John Ford and leadership, and that will continue. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni, and you just validated another thing, and I'm happy that Mr. John Ford is still there. And again, congratulations to Ms. Chan. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, are there any other reports?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Vice Mayor, please.
On November 19th, I had a BOSCA meeting, the Bay Area Water Supply Conservation Agency. And so we had a report from SFPUC. It was Sophie Maxwell, the president of the commission of SFPUC, who provided the updated alignment around BOSCA's goal on reliable supply of high quality water at a fair price at our meeting. Also, action items at that meeting were we approved proposed modifications to the agency's investment policy to include U.S. agencies permitted investment for bond proceeds with sector allocation limited but not to exceed 40% of total stabilization fund market value at the time of purchase. Also, there was no water supply update at that time. They're still getting more data, and they will be hosting the next meeting, which will be on January 21st next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, for that.
Thank
Okay.
you. Also, oh,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, please.
More to come. Also on November 19th, this will be my last report. I joined Supervisor David Canepa with Peninsula Conflict Resolution about the discussion around racial equity and the recommendations of meaningful policy within San Mateo County. I just want to reiterate along these same lines when we convened on the Black Lives Matter resolution. I think one of the ideas brought forth, and I brought forth to that meeting, was really providing implicit bias training for all of Daly City. I know City Manager Maltby is looking into this, but really looking at implicit bias training for all staff levels, management, direct staff that interface with community, also for us as council members, commissioners, as a standard training for all of the city of Daly City. So I look forward to seeing how that could come into implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and I think that's an excellent idea and something to have to ensure the transparency to our citizens and the public, and that we are taking the extra steps. So I applaud you for making that recommendation, and I hope to hear more of that later on in the future. Thank you. Okay, are there any other council committee meetings or reports?
No,
Okay.
just city council.
Pam, go ahead.
No, are you moving? The next one is city council, right? Okay, thank you.
Right, I'll be moving that one next.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next item, city council reports, and Pam, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Speaking in an equitable lens, I wanted to make sure that people knew that there was this great testing by Curative. It was at the Bayshore School. I want to thank the principal, Maya, and Audra Pittman, the superintendent, and put forth by including the board over there at the school. I think it was almost over 600 tests in the Bayshore area, which included the Midway that were done in that area. Some did come from other parts of Daly City, but mostly, at least it was accessible on the property of the Bayshore. Very well run. I believe the lead on that, to organize it, was president of the board, Teresa Fabua, but that coordinated it as well with the county to make sure that it was accessible to everyone in that area. And then I too was on the PCRC, the Peninsula Conflict Resolution, with Supervisor Canepa, and thank the Vice Mayor for the expansion of the suggestion of the bias training, because I know that we've had it at the city level with the staff, and we had it within the police department as well. And I believe executive manager was part of it, to expand it to the commissioners. I think that I support that as well. And that's an excellent idea, that we all are inclusive and we all interact with one another. And it's something that anyone can benefit from. So I do support the expansion of that, the bias training that the HR had provided before, prior, I know, to staff members. I think it was last year or year before last. But thank you very much. And that concludes that part. And then there was testing. Jefferson High School, headed by the president of JUHSD, Faith in Action partners, and they too, in our county, and I think they tested over 500 people on Saturday. So there seems to be a lot of movement and making sure that our city community members aren't being tested. Thank you very much for COVID.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni. I recall something on the news this evening, a young lady who works at, I believe it's Amazon, and she commuted 51 miles to take a test. And by the time she arrived at her the location, it was in the morning, and they closed down at 10, and she was unable to get tested. And she needs to obtain this test in order to get a work release to go back to work at her employer. And I'm happy to hear of the outcome of the locations that you've made mention here in Daly City, especially in the Bayshore. And thank you for that information. You know, it's optimism that we're doing good here, and we're trying to take care of our constituents and our citizens to the best that we can. And thank you, Shauna. I know you're involved because we discussed this before. We can get free tests, but the logistics is how to administer them. So from what I'm hearing, it's working out very well. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Pam, for that update.
Yes.
Okay, continuing on still, city council reports. Anyone else? Extracurricular activities that has been done or you want to let us know about? Okay, Dr. Rod, I see that consternation on your face.
I'm trying to remember, but it's eluding me right now, Mayor.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so we'll move on. Next item is staff reports, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Maltby.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Just really briefly, I want to, on behalf of the city manager's office, just say how thankful we are for so many things during this time, this really insane year, if I do say so. There are so many people who are struggling, and I just want to acknowledge how thankful we are to our community for staying engaged during this time, for giving us feedback and tuning into our meetings, to our workforce who their work looks so different now than it did 8 or 9 months ago, and they're working so hard at all levels. And to you, City Council, for your leadership during this time, and having to deal with some really very different issues than you had to deal with last year. Really important issues, important decisions, and we're thankful. So that was one. I think it's Thanksgiving. It's the time to recognize our blessings, and I would be remiss if I didn't put that out there. And then technical stuff. We only have one more meeting this year, council meeting, and that is December 14th. And that will also be the meeting for the city council reorganization. So I just wanted to put that on everybody's calendars. It'll look different than any other reorg we've ever seen, but it'll be festive just the same. And also tune into our social media sites for things like the Frosty Fest and the tree lighting and those kinds of things. So we'll try to make it as festive as possible. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Shauna. And it really means a lot coming from you. And 2020 has been a trying year for all of us, but we appreciate your leadership. We appreciate the team you've put together, and we appreciate the staff and the entire city for what they do, because we know they had to adjust, and it's a fluid situation here, and it's constantly changing. So thank you for that validation, Shauna. You are very most appreciated by all of us as well. So thank you. All right, any other comments for Shauna before I move on? Okay, next, and the last item is the adjournment, and I'll open it up to Councilmember Di Giovanni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, let me begin by saying that the Riverside Sheriff's Association, sadly, the Julio Beltran, he was a deputy probation officer. He was only 34 years old. He passed away with COVID. So it was great sadness that he was a veteran who actually worked with youth and adults. He leaves behind a wife, a son, and his own parents. So that's such a young age. And I want to say that to his family in blue, his family he left behind, at 34 years old is too young, and he will be missed. Secondly, it is great sadness that the tragic passing of the interim Oakland Assistant Fire Chief from the Oakland Fire Department Local 55, who was only 42 years old. He passed away tragically with a cardiac arrest. He was a dedicated member of the Oakland Fire Department. He began his career graduating the Fire Academy in the year 2000. Sadly, he leaves behind 3 sons, Caden, Connor, Cooper, his wife, Sabrina, and as a matter of fact, Caden is a probationary firefighter. So to all those in our public safety, firefighter family, and first responders, those were great condolences. Thirdly, I was sent this obituary, and some of you may know her, Frances A. Dowd. She was a beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and sister. Frances A. Dowd passed away peacefully in November 2020 at the age of 83 years old. Frances was born to Cecilia and Frank Sullivan in 1937. She grew up in the Excelsior District of San Francisco, attended Epiphany School, and graduated Cathedral High School with the class of 55. Frances worked in the San Francisco Public Library, the Hamsbury, where she and her husband met, and later at Daniel Webster Elementary School Library in Daly City. That's where most of you may know her. Frances is survived by her husband, Jim Dowd, her children and their families, Christine and Michael Leong, Michael and Vicky Dowd, Jerry Dowd and Julie Frodnestein, Joe Dowd and Jean Sousa, and grandchildren, Delaney Dowd, Brandon Dowd, and Cynthia Leong. Frances loved flying with her brother, skiing, tennis, knitting, and books. She and Jim enjoyed the younger years, skiing in the slopes of Lake Tahoe and Idaho. She enjoyed many summers at Lake Wildwood, playing her with her tennis. Above all, Frances was an amazing wife and mother. Frances and Jim were married for 60 years and raised 4 children together. She ran a loving household with a magical balance of discipline, love, and laughter. All who touched her or treated her with, she always greeted them with a warm smile, loving heart, and kindness, and a legendary cooking. Special thanks to the staff of Stanford Oncology and Mission Hospice. And I would like to thank Al Herpes for sending me this obituary. Rest in peace to the condolences to her family and to the community she loved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Di Giovanni. I'd like to report the following with sadness. The first one comes by way of Tita Perla of PVRC. Cosmedino Layson Sr. And to my knowledge, he was a volunteer at PBRC for some time, a few years ago. The next is Alexander Valenzuela, the daughter who I had the pleasure to work with during my career, shared a story with me. On the date of his passing, a garbage truck where she lives backed into the deck of where she resides. And when she went out to get the driver's name, you can imagine how she felt when the driver's name was the same name as her dad. So I'm sure that was really an experience for her. But Mr. Alexander Valenzuela. And lastly, I'd like to report the passing of Miss Eleanor Woolard. And again, she's the mom of someone who I used to work with. And I'm sure that the family would appreciate the adjournment of this meeting, not only for the three that I've mentioned, but for everyone on the list. So are there any other adjournment in memories at this time? Okay, hearing none, I would like to pause for a brief moment of silence, please. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is now adjourned. Stay healthy and stay safe, and we'll see you again next month.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving,
holiday.
everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.